Inside the bustling Power PC zone, the chatter revolved around the latest update in Dungeon Craft, an online game where players built their own challenges. One player excitedly asked his friend if he had seen the new Conchi map on DC, only for the friend to scoff, implying he was late to the party. This friend, sitting beside him, boasted about Conchi's first place on the map right, achieving it solo. He admitted the map was insanely difficult, prompting his companion to remark that the creator, Conchi, wasn't human. Nearby, another gamer, Conchi himself, munched on sausages while overhearing them. His friend questioned him how he managed first place so quickly, though he suspected foul play, betting he used a bot, before questioning why Conchi, despite earning heaps of money, always ate the cheap PC zone food. Conchi simply defended the food's quality. Brushing off the suspicion, Conchi announced he'd secured first place yet again, displaying the ranking screen, and told his friend to prepare himself. The friend reacted with disbelief, calling Conchi a little brat for treating first place as a given, doubling down on the bot accusation. Conchi internally smirked. They weren't technically wrong. He mused that he was, in a way, an AI, finding his only real enjoyment within the game's world and the process of map creation. As Conchi left the PC zone, his friend wished him a good day. He reminded him not to forget to treat him tomorrow with his winnings. Conchi walked away, lost in thought. If ever asked why he was so obsessed with the game, the reason was simple. In the real world, he felt he could control nothing. Games offered an escape where tasks felt easy, unlike real life where everything seemed impossible. He glanced at the mundane, inefficient telephone poles lining the street. In the game, altering their form and size was just a mouse click away. Reality, however, wasn't so malleable. Lost in these thoughts, he didn't notice the truck speeding towards him. It was too bad, he reflected grimly, that in reality, even an object like a truck couldn't just be removed at will. The truck driver slammed on the brakes, tires screeching just inches away. Startled back to the present, Conchi muttered relief, thinking he narrowly avoided getting the classic Truck-Kuin Ice Guy special. The furious driver leaned out, yelling about whether Conchi had a death wish and demanding where he was looking. Unfazed, Conchi pointed towards the pedestrian crossing signal, which clearly showed the green walking symbol. The driver stared, bewildered, wondering when the light had changed. Sighing, Conchi continued walking, the frustration settling back in. If only he could manipulate real life like a game, everything would be so much more convenient. He could build the world he wanted. Just then, disaster struck nearby. A construction crane's hook snapped, sending a heavy steel beam plummeting towards the ground as people screamed warnings. Conchi saw a small girl standing frozen directly in the beam's path, his eyes widening in shock. He knew, however, that in this reality, the only thing he could truly control was his own body. Reacting instantly, he shoved the girl clear, taking the full impact himself. The girl sat stunned on the pavement, her ball rolling nearby, as Conchi lay crushed and bleeding beneath the steel beam. He gasped for air, his vision fading. The crushing weight, the pain, this was real life. Suddenly, he was falling, adrift in an unnerving darkness. He questioned where he was, feeling like he was in a black hole, wondering if he wasn't actually dead. A deep, imposing voice echoed, addressing him as mortal. A terrifying, shadowy entity with glowing eyes materialized before him, inquiring about his experience in the hell of oblivion and declaring it time to face reality. Conchi yelled back, demanding to know who the entity was and what this hell of oblivion entailed. The entity cryptically stated that death was merely a means for reincarnation. Conchi was baffled. The entity offered him a chance to recall his memories. Still confused, Conchi demanded it make sense. Ignoring his pleas, the entity, calling him the Oblivious One, commanded him to open his eyes. Conchi panicked as an unseen force assaulted his senses, his eyes transforming into demonic yellow slits. He screamed, finding himself standing abruptly in a grand, stone room. It looked like a castle. Catching his reflection, he saw a stranger staring back, a young man with horns, fangs, pointed ears, and sharp claws. Ichi recoiled, questioning if this was him, and if he wasn't dead after all. Had he actually been ice-guyed, just like in countless anime? The sensation felt too real. This was no dream. If so, then where exactly was he? He muttered aloud, asking himself who he was now. Before he could process further, a flash of blue energy erupted. His eyes widened in alarm as a spectral blade pierced his chest. He gasped, coughing blood. A demonic girl with long white pigtails, horns, and a sadistic grin appeared, taunting him, asking if he thought he was going to die. The pain was excruciating. She had pierced his sternum. He choked out, asking why she attacked him. The girl, Seldora, grinned wider, stating plainly that she hated him and was trying to get rid of him, of course. He stared in disbelief. She genuinely meant to kill him. As Seldora raised her weapon again, another figure intercepted the blow. Seldora angrily demanded why Tarm was interfering. Tarm, a composed male demon with white hair and horns, calmly admonished Seldora, telling her she shouldn't treat her brother this way. Conchi, or Kella as he was apparently known here, felt his mind reeling. Brother? Who is this guy now? Tarm approached Kella, expressing pity that Seldora had bullied him again and offered a small bottle, urging him to drink. Assuming it was a potion, Kella gratefully downed the contents. Tarm watched, remarking with slight surprise that Kella drank it so readily today. A split second later, Kella's eyes bulged as searing agony erupted in his throat. He violently vomited a viscous purple substance, clutching his neck, realizing with horror it was poison. Seldora watched with morbid curiosity, asking if he was dying, though she'd wanted to be the one to kill him. Tarm observed clinically, noting Kella's pain, but doubting it was fatal, lamenting that his poison recipe, much like his attempt at baking last week, seemed to be another failure. Kella writhed, consumed by pain and confusion, wondering why he had to suffer this torment. Suddenly, massive doors at the end of the hall swung open. A booming voice announced the return of the Demon King Helkeldun from his hero hunt. Tarm and Seldora noted their father was back earlier than expected. Kella choked on the word. Father? An immensely powerful figure strode in. Muscular, imposing, with long dark hair and massive horns, radiating palpable pressure. This was the Demon King Helkeldun. Helkeldun scanned the scene, his voice laced with displeasure as he questioned the source of the vile noises. Kella's blood ran cold. That man was the Demon King? Seldora immediately groveled, attempting to shift the blame onto Kella. Helkeldun silenced them both with a wave of oppressive energy, declaring that the moans of the weak were a humiliation within his castle walls. Seldora and Tarm choked under the pressure, stammering apologies and begging for mercy. Kella watched, the pieces clicking into place with horrifying clarity. If these two were his siblings, then this terrifying Demon King was his father. Helkeldun addressed the room, stating he only wished to hear two sounds within his domain. Kella held his breath. The Demon King elaborated. The sound of a great demon being birthed, and the sound of honorable death. His aura intensified, sending waves of pressure through the castle, causing unseen weaklings to cry out. Helkeldun walked past, leaving his children trembling. Kella coughed, still reeling from the poison and the devastating revelation, collapsing to the floor. So, he had reincarnated into another world, only to end up as the son of this absolute monster? Damn it. Of all the possibilities, why did it have to be the Demon King? Flashes of memory assaulted him, fragments of a painful past. A younger Kella sobbed, crying out for his mother, complaining that Seldora had poked his eye with a fork. A regal woman with long white hair offered cold comfort. Acknowledging the pain must have been immense. The young demon then wailed that Tarm had poisoned his food. The mother's eyes hardened. She advised him that, in that case, he should repay them like a true demon would. Terrified, the child protested that Seldora and Tarm might kill him if he retaliated. Her chilling response was that he simply needed to kill them first, before they could kill him. The boy's tears froze. She reminded him his father had killed 12 brothers to become the great demon king. The point was, if someone tried to kill him, he should eliminate them first. She then produced a dagger, demonstrating her point by abruptly stabbing the young Kella, telling him to act just like this, like a demon would. He screamed for his mother again. Her voice echoed, asking if he understood now. With a gasp, he jolted awake, finding himself in bed. A young woman with short gray hair and horns stood nearby, asking if Lord Kella was awake now. He realized those weren't his memories. They belonged to Kella Kaldun, the original owner of this body he now inhabited. He looked down at himself, noticing the injuries from the steel beam and the subsequent attacks were completely gone. Kella possessed incredible regenerative abilities. The servant, Rin, informed him he'd slept quite a while and that it was almost time for the family meal, urging him to get up. He numbly agreed. Rin was Kella's personal servant. According to the memories, Kella's timid nature had earned him constant scorn. More memories flickered. Rin instructing Kella on what clothes to wear for a party, Kella awkwardly trying to suggest Rin could help him dress before hastily backtracking. Rin assigning him her cleaning duties, finding Rin sleeping in his bed, or even sending a crude doll to work in her place. Processing this, he felt a surge of indignation. Kella, that little rascal, was the son of the Demon King, yet he allowed himself to be intimidated by a servant? Yes, Kella, the previous owner of this body, had been helplessly bullied his entire life. This new existence felt disturbingly similar to his previous one. A grim determination set in. Those who look weak will die. He arrived at the grand dining hall, where his father, Helkuldun, sat at the head of the table with Seldra and Tarm. Helkuldun's gaze was sharp as he noted Kella's lateness. The Demon King's presence was truly imposing, Kella thought, fitting for his title. He offered a curt apology for being late and took his seat. Almost immediately, a sharp knife landed on his shin under the table, Seldra welcoming him in her own charming way. He clenched his teeth, suppressing a groan. Seldra commented with false sweetness that he didn't seem energetic and pushed a bowl of soup towards him, urging him to eat more. He tensed, acutely aware of the danger if they discovered he wasn't the Kella they knew. Forcing down his apprehension, he mumbled thanks and steeled himself. He took a spoonful of the soup Tarm had offered. The familiar, agonizing burn flared, poison again. Tarm smiled serenely, asking if the soup, specially made for him, wasn't particularly tasty. Kella managed a strained agreement through gritted teeth. These demons, they weren't family, they were tormentors. He refused to let them bully him any longer. He needed to do something. He had always yearned to achieve things himself. That drive made him the top map designer in Dungeon Craft. But in reality, he had been powerless against bullies, beaten down, and ultimately died helplessly. He swore he would never let that happen again. A new fire ignited within him. With newfound resolve, he picked up the bowl of poisoned soup. He addressed Seldra, suggesting she have a taste of the soup Tarm had prepared before launching the contents directly into her shocked face. Then, turning to Tarm, he put out a blood-stained dagger from his leg, Seldra's earlier present, and declared he would give Tarm her gift before plunging the blade into his shoulder. Helkuldun watched the chaos unfold, his expression unreadable. Kella stood, pushing himself away from the table and addressing his father directly. He questioned why demons should gather for a happy family meal, then flipped the entire dining table over with a roar, declaring they'd all eat by themselves from now on. Seldra and Tarm stared, stunned. He grinned savagely, challenging them. "Let's see who wins this, you demons." Later, perched on an outer castle wall, Kella reflected that the outburst felt really great, even though flipping the table earned him a savage beating from his father that would have killed a normal person. Yet, thanks to his incredible regeneration, he had recovered completely in a short time. He flexed his demonic hand, feeling a strange, foreign strength coursing through him. He guessed he really was the Demon King's son, after all, and wondered just how strong this power could become. Rin approached, reminding Lord Kella it was almost time for his lesson on demonic power. He shot back, telling her to stop ordering him around. Rin looked bewildered by his sudden change in demeanor, probably thinking new Kella. Who dis? A lesson on demonic power. According to Kella's memories, it was among his worst experiences. Still, there was no reason to skip it. He arrived at the training grounds where an instructor waited with a group of young demons. The instructor noted Lady Seldra and Lord Tarm wouldn't be joining, but confirmed the rest were present. Kella recognized them instantly. These are the same demons from Kella's memories, the ones who relished bullying Kella like it was a game. One of them, a redhead, smirked and immediately charged, preparing an attack. This was a lesson, after all, the bully thought as he struck Kella down. The other bullies laughed mockingly. They were the true demons among demonkin, finding joy in tormenting Kella. Another bully chimed in, asking the redhead if he wasn't going too easy on him. Seldra, observing from nearby, gave her permission for the bully to show his true abilities. The redhead thanked her eagerly and powered up for another strike as Kella pleaded for him to stop, yelling that he didn't want to fight. Kella reflected internally that the original Kella hadn't been weak. He just had a soft heart. But everything was different now. He clenched his fist, a determined glint in his eyes. He would use this strength properly. Chapter 3. Lesson Learned. The sparring class commenced under the instructor's direction. When asked who had sparred previously, the red-haired demon, Rude, smugly volunteered himself alongside Kella, deliberately dropping the formal title as he spoke. Kella's eyes narrowed at the blatant disrespect. This son of a witch. The instructor, oblivious or uncaring, announced the start of their second spar. Rude eagerly powered up crackling purple energy, asking Kella if he was ready for round 2. The surrounding students snickered, predicting another near-death beating for young Master Kella, and mockingly telling Rude to go easy so the crybaby wouldn't weep again. Kella glanced at the jeering crowd, then back at Rude's menacing grin. He recognized the pattern. Kella and he were similar in many ways. Even in his past life, without money or strength, he'd been isolated and looked down upon by everyone. But that was then, Kella declared internally, unleashing a torrent of vibrant blue mana that pulsed around him. Rude stared, aghast, questioning how Kella possessed such power. The other students murmured, wondering if the mana surge was real. The pressure radiating from Kella was immense, rooting Rude to the spot. Kella stated coolly that he'd go easy today. Rude just needed to take one hit. With blinding speed, he slammed a mana-infused fist into Rude's chest, sending the bully crashing into the ground with enough force to crater the earth. The onlookers were stunned into silence. Rude hadn't even been able to react. The instructor stammered, nervously wondering if Rude was dead. A weak cough answered him. Rude was alive, but utterly broken. Kella loomed over the beaten demon, coldly inquiring what Rude had said earlier, questioning his audacity to speak so disrespectfully to the Demon King's son. Terrified, Rude sputtered apologies, hastily adding the proper title, Sir Kella. Kella warned him never to make that mistake again, emphasizing that death would be the consequence. The crowd whispered amongst themselves, baffled by how the loser Kella had suddenly become so strong. Kella turned his chilling gaze upon the instructor, asking with mock politeness if class shouldn't continue, causing the teacher to flinch and stammer agreement. Rin and the other demons watched, utterly shocked. Rin could only conclude that Sir Kella was definitely weird now. As he stood alone on the training field near the defeated bullies, while unnoticed, Helkeldun observed silently from a high balcony. Meanwhile, in Hel Calden's castle, Seldra seethed in a steaming bath, furious that Kella had dared throw poisoned soup in her face. Tarm, soaking nearby and nursing his own injuries, calmly advised her to focus on her treatment, reminding her she lacked Kella's frankly unfair regenerative abilities. Seldra raged about the injustice, questioning why Kella alone possessed such power. Tarm mused that Kella had undeniably undergone a significant change. He recalled the dinner incident, the shock on everyone's faces, and something even more surprising. For just a fleeting moment, their father had actually smiled. Seldra shrieked at the thought. Father smiling for Kella? Tarm agreed it wasn't normal behavior for the Demon King. Seldra demanded his point. Tarm acknowledged she'd probably rather take another poison bath than cooperate with him, catching her off guard. He then proposed a temporary truce. They should stop their infighting and focus on taking care of Kella together. A slow, calculating smile spread across his face. Seldra considered it, then conceded it wasn't a bad idea. They made a pact: kill Kella first, before he managed to gain any more of their father's attention. Allowed a sharp, knowing grin. Back in a classroom setting, the instructor lectured about the previous Demon King, Turk Kaldun, displaying a spectral image. Kella thought his grandfather looked incredibly demonic, maybe even more than Helkaldun. The instructor explained that Turk, while immensely powerful, had fallen to a cowardly scheme by the Heaven Guild. Since then, opportunistic human guilds have been encroaching on their borders. Kella accessed his host's memories, recalling the information about these surrounding guilds. It was because of these guild bastards he realized from Kella's despairing thoughts that escape from the castle was impossible. The idea of being trapped here forever was maddening. He refocused as the instructor declared that these guilds, under the banner of the Heaven Guild, were preparing an attack, urging the students to pour their hearts in a combat class to aid King Hell in wiping them out. The class erupted in zealous cheers for the honor of demons. Kella remained silent, contemplating. Later, sitting alone on a high castle wall, he knew he needed to find a way out of here. Staying meant risking death at any time from his own treacherous family. He called Rin over and confirmed his father was scheduled to leave on an expedition in 3 days. Did she know, he asked abruptly, that this castle possessed a significant weakness? Rin looked baffled by the non sequitur. He explained there was no map architect utilizing the terrain effectively. The guilds exploited these neglected territories surrounding the kingdom to launch attacks. Therefore, he announced his plan. Before his father's next departure, he would map the entire area. He would help his father destroy every last one of them. Then, he thought with a hidden smirk, it was time to prepare for his real escape. Okay then, Kella decided, steeling himself. It was time to officially begin the escape plan. This wasn't reality, he reminded himself. The limitations didn't apply. He could shape this map exactly as he envisioned. He whirled around, startling Rin with a sharp command to create a secret office in the castle basement immediately. Rin, taken aback, stammered about needing an office. Kella impatiently explained he required a space to work secretly, hidden from his father's prying eyes. Deep within the castle's torch-lit lower levels, Helkaldun sat, bathed in an ominous pink aura, his thoughts seemingly distant yet focused. Kella couldn't escape his eyes. The Demon King mused silently. Before it was too late, he needed to confirm something, needed to be certain about his son's sudden change. When Rin presented the hastily assembled office, Kella stared in dismay. It was little more than a dusty storage room. He demanded to know what kind of pathetic setup this was for the son of the great Demon King. Rin tearfully explained it was the best she could do in secret, but Kella cut her off, yelling at her to do it properly. He knew he had to treat her fiercely, sometimes to maintain control. Rin trembled, thinking how scary he'd become, so different from the Kella she knew. But she couldn't deny he also seemed much cooler now. Maybe she should try harder for him? Lost in thought, she jumped when Kella snapped at her for staring, demanding she fetch him a cup of coffee. Rin yelped an affirmative and scrambled out the reinforced door, muttering about coffee. Finally alone, Kella surveyed the dismal room and the map spread on the table. This Demon King castle, he thought, lacked strategic depth. It held no hopes or dreams for defense. Now, he declared, it was time to create his own map. Outside, Rin dashed through the corridors, still chanting about coffee, only to stop dead, utterly confused. What was coffee, anyway? That sounded like a skill issue on her part. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed. Helkaldun appeared, calling Rin's name. He confronted the terrified servant, demanding to know why she was in the basement without Kella. Where was Kella right now? Rin stammered, panicked, internally torn as Helkaldun pressed for an answer. Kella had asked her to keep this place a secret. Behind a closed door, Kella was completely engrossed in his work, sketching lines and symbols. This was actually fun. He supposed he was lucky, remembering the thrill of victory in his old life. Thinking back, he realized he always had the most fun when making maps. The heavy door behind him suddenly burst open, and a wave of energy sent it flying. Dunn stood there, his voice dangerously low, stating he couldn't believe Kella created a secret office without reporting to him. How had Hell found him? Before Kella could react, his father's hand pierced through his chest. Dunn leaned close, whispering that if Kella truly wanted to kill him, he shouldn't hide like a coward. Kella choked out the word "father," blood pouring from his mouth. The sheer scale of the pain was different. This was the overwhelming power of the great demon king. He was genuinely going to die this time. Desperately, Kella shoved the map towards his father, yelling for him to look at it. Dunn held him suspended, asking dismissively what he was supposed to be looking at. Kella frantically explained the castle's outskirts were strategically disadvantageous against the guilds. If they changed the geography according to his map, it would provide a massive advantage in the coming battles. Dunn's eyes narrowed slightly before he violently threw Kella to the floor. He demanded why Kella had created the office in secret. Kella, gasping, explained he knew his father wouldn't permit him to help if he asked directly. He'd wanted to present the finished map first. Dunn remained silent, studying him. Kella pushed himself up, declaring that as the son of the great demon king, he wanted to aid in exterminating heaven. Their intense gazes met. Rin, witnessing this, thought Kella must have a death wish, speaking so boldly. Dunn finally spoke, asking how long Kella expected the mapping to take. Kella blinked, surprised. How many days, Dunn clarified, pointing a blood-stained finger, would it take to complete the map? Relief washed over Kella. Hell understood. 5 days, he declared, pressing a bloody hand to the map. 5 is enough. Dunn scoffed, reminding him Heaven's forces would reassemble in 3 days. The map would be useless by then. Kella quickly corrected himself. Not 5 days, 5 hours. Dunn looked genuinely surprised. Kella pressed his advantage, stating construction could finish within 3 days before the battle. He pleaded, blood dripping from his chin, to be put in command of the plan. Dunn considered him intently, his expression unreadable. Very well, he conceded Kella could try to complete his map, but as he turned to leave, he delivered a final, chilling warning. If Kella was all talk, he would personally rip both him and his map to shreds. Kella readily agreed, trying to hide his pained winces. As the door closed, Kella allowed himself a triumphant, bloody grin. He did it. The adrenaline faded, and he immediately doubled over, groaning in agony before collapsing and vomiting blood. That demon, he thought weakly, Dunn was truly planning to kill him if he had no use. Rin rushed forward, amazed Kella had actually convinced the great demon king. Kella snapped at her not to just stand there and take him to the med room. True to his word, 5 hours later, Kella, bandaged but resolute, presented the finished map. Immediately, the Demon King's forces mobilized, beginning extensive construction around the castle. Mages erected powerful illusion magic to cloak the area, transforming the surrounding geography without alerting their enemies. Just like creating a new map in the game, Kella mused, everything was proceeding according to his plan. At the Heaven Guild assembly point, however, panic erupted. Guildmaster Hermazin received the startling news. The demons were transforming the surrounding terrain. His subordinate confirmed they had detected illusion magic concealing the activity. Hermazin pondered the demons' strange actions, while his subordinate suggested attacking immediately to stop them. Hermazin dismissed the idea with a wave. It was useless this late in the game. In 3 days, he boasted Talcan, the strongest squad forged in Talua, would arrive. That elite unit, prepared over dozens of years, was finally complete. Hermazin laughed confidently. The demon's hasty 3-day preparations were meaningless. The great demon King Helcaldun would be defeated. He rallied his assembled troops, declaring their arrival at the Demon King's castle in 2 days. General Killman roared that the Talcon generation, after thousands of years, would finally end the Demon King's reign, ordering the charge to burn the castle down. One warrior praised Killman's incredible leadership. A younger soldier nervously asked Commander Srills if their hunt would truly succeed. Srills grinned fiercely. The Talcon squad was different from the other guilds. They would ensure the great Demon King was killed. High in the towers of the Demon King's castle, Helkildun sat upon his throne, acknowledging that Kella hadn't been bluffing about the map's potential. He admitted to himself, flexing his clawed hand, that the plan wasn't perfect, but his own body was nearing its limits, leaving him little room to be picky. Tomorrow, he resolved, was the day he would finally settle the score with heaven. Below, the frantic construction continued under the mage's direction, the urgency palpable as they magically moved massive stone blocks. Demon laborers worked tirelessly, urged to break rocks and move faster. From a high window, Kella observed the progress alongside Rin, noting with satisfaction that everything was proceeding as planned. Still, he reflected, this felt vastly different from merely creating a map within a game. The power to actually reshape the physical land according to his will was intoxicating. Now, all that remained was to wait for the inevitable clash between hell and heaven. Tomorrow was the big day. The next day dawned, and the armies of heaven arrived, heralded by cheers for the Talcon squad, descending from the sky on Dragonback. Guildmaster Hermazin formally greeted the Talcon leader, who declared his elite squad ready for the Demon King's defeat. Hermazin agreed enthusiastically, ordering the immediate advance towards the castle. The Talcon leader roared, rallying his soldiers to bring victory to Talua. Suddenly, a bright blue sigil flared to life on the ground before them, rapidly expanding and catching Hermazin by surprise. The Talcon leader reacted instantly, shouting in alarm and identifying it as a surprise attack, ordering his troops into a defensive formation. A colossal wave of energy erupted upwards, engulfing the front lines as soldiers screamed. Shields materialized as another guild member cried out about the impossibility of it. Amidst the blinding energy, a figure materialized, Helkildun himself, teleporting directly into their midst, much to the Talcon leader's disbelief. Kella's plan flashed back. He had explained to his father how he'd removed Heaven's surveillance barrier over the castle, enabling unrestricted teleportation magic. Helkildun had considered the implications, teleporting directly into the enemy base. Seldra had protested vehemently, echoed by Tarm, who insisted it was too dangerous, even for the Demon King. Helkildun had coldly questioned their doubt in his power. They had stammered, trying to mention his recent injuries, but he silenced them, declaring the final decision was his alone. His plan was set. Tomorrow, he would begin his assault from the heart of Heaven's base and kill every single one of them. In the present, the Talcon leader furiously accused Helkildun of catching them off guard, vowing they, the mighty Talcon, would make him regret it. He ordered a full-scale attack. Helkildun met the charge unflinchingly, unleashing a devastating counterblast that tore through the battlefield. From a high vantage point, Kella watched the chaos unfold. He had gathered all the forces. The preparations were complete. He gave the signal, ordering the assembled demon army to charge. Hordes of grotesque demons surged forward, catching the heaven soldiers by surprise. More demons erupted from beneath the ground, throwing the human lines into further disarray. The heaven soldiers yelled about the ambush, desperately trying to hold the line and prevent the demons from breaking through. Kella clenched his fist, standing tall amidst the sounds of battle. A confident, almost predatory grin spread across his face. Everything was going according to plan. Kella, there you are. A familiar voice interrupted. Tarm appeared behind him, stating coolly that things wouldn't go as Kella planned. Seldra and her brother joined him. Tarm remarked how unfortunate it was, claiming he wouldn't have intervened if Kella hadn't crossed the line. Kella stared in shock at his siblings' betrayal. With a sinister smile, Tarm unleashed a whip of crackling green energy that struck Kella squarely in the gut, the impact throwing him back. Kella cried out, clutching the wound. Now, Seldra, Tarm called out with relish. Seldra leaped into action, declaring Kella's insane recovery rate meant nothing if she simply cut off his head, swinging her blade in a deadly arc. The siblings cackled maniacally as Kella's head flew from his shoulders. Ah, this is, Kella thought, his vision fading as his severed head tumbled through the air. Looks like they pulled a sneaky on me. This is how it ends. Kella's headless body pitched forward, tumbling down from the castle wall. It landed with a sickening thud on the stone below, the severed head rolling a short distance away. A faint sound escaped the head's lips. Above, Tarm and Seldra watched, triumphant. Tarm declared Kella finally dealt with, suggesting they rejoin their father. But as he turned, a sudden flash of pain erupted from his side. Seldra had stabbed him with a wickedly familiar dagger. She commended his quick reflexes, though they weren't quick enough. Tarm recognized the blade, sputtering that it was their mother's forbidden weapon. Seldra sneered, dismissing the rules. They were demons, and weapons were for using. Tarm stared in disbelief. Seldra's ambition shone as she declared her intent. Kill Tarm here, and she be the sole successor left. Enraged, Tarm lunged, screaming his intent to kill her first. Seldra dodged, taunting that it was over the moment the knife struck, and their deadly dance began. On the ground, Kella's severed head faced the sky. His fading consciousness registered the irony. How could they be so perfectly, predictably demonic? They were exactly as he'd imagined. His body lay still, a broken puppet. Then, Rin appeared, catching the lifeless form, preventing it from shattering completely. She frantically tried to align the head with the neck, ignoring the gruesome reality. Meanwhile, the main battle raged. Following Kella's earlier instructions, the demon forces surged towards a secret pathway, aiming to flank the Heaven Army. The Heaven soldiers realized the tactic, but their commanders rallied them, ordering no quarter given. The demons charged heedlessly, knowing there was no retreat, honor their only motivation as the clash intensified. Helkuldun faced a charging dragon, easily deflecting its fiery breath. He remarked it had been a while since facing such an attack before leaping onto the beast, tearing it apart with overwhelming force. Kilman, the Talcan leader, roared in fury at the loss of his mount, Pily. He ordered his soldiers to unleash everything they had against the Demon King. Helkuldun stood impassive amidst the barrage, wondering if they'd managed to scratch him. A soldier yelled that it wasn't over yet. Blue energy flared around Helkuldun, his form beginning to shift and grow. He transformed, revealing his terrifying final form. The Heaven soldiers recognized it from legends, a sight confirming the Demon King's true power. Fear paralyzed the ranks. Commander Srills desperately urged them to focus, though she herself trembled, unable to stop shivering before such might. No wonder the others couldn't move. Helkuldun surveyed the battlefield. He acknowledged the plan's flaw. Teleporting directly into the enemy base left no path for retreat. That was the downside, but he hadn't mentioned it. The Demon King doesn't consider escape routes. Perhaps Kella had considered it too. Regardless, it wasn't important now. He just needed to kill them all. Kilman yelled that Helkuldun was going all out, ordering his men to put their lives on the line. The Demon King's power gathered, promising annihilation. Back in a hidden passage, Rin held Kella's head to his body, pleading desperately. A flashback intruded, Kella instructing a disgusted Rin to reattach his severed arm during regeneration experiments. The arm healed, though scarred. Rin asked if it was done. Kella confirmed it worked, then shocked her by saying his head was next. He explained the need to test it, asking her to cut carefully, ignoring her terrified refusal. The experimentation concluded. Kella then instructed Rin to subtly inform Seldra's servant that he planned to kill Seldra during the battle. Rin, wide-eyed, nervously carried out the order, telling the stern servant Kella's supposed plan, emphasizing he'd act while the Demon King was occupied. The servant reacted predictably with fury. Rin slyly suggested this was Seldura's perfect chance to slice off Kella's head, guaranteeing his death regardless of regeneration. The flashback faded. Rin cradled Kella's head, cursing his crazy plan. It worked, but it meant nothing if he died. She called him an idiot. Kella's eyes snapped open. "Who?" he asked coolly. "Are you calling an idiot?" Rin recoiled in shock. Kella assessed himself. The mana-imbued dagger had slowed his recovery, but he'd survived, just like he'd planned. "It's all according to plan," he thought, a bloody grin spreading across his face. Kella smirked, blood staining his grin, asserting that surviving was all that mattered. His plan continued. Rin stared, tears welling up, before launching herself at him, sobbing that she thought he'd died. Kella reacted with startled confusion to the sudden embrace. He hastily pushed her away, telling her to stop since he was fine and needed to leave. Then, pausing, he held up a glowing pink mana, formally undoing the servant contract between them and granting Rin her freedom. Rin looked stunned, whispering his name. Kella explained that with the contract gone, she should live life as she wished. Rin looked utterly shocked as Kella turned and walked away. A memory surfaced for Rin, a younger Kella asking her to be his friend instead of just a servant. Tears streamed down her face again. Suddenly resolute, she chased after him, screaming for him to take her along, refusing his command not to follow. Kella retorted that she'd only get in the way. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, a battered Killman faced the monstrous Helkuldun, calling him a monster. Helkuldun stood impassively, wounds weeping blood but seemingly ignored. Killman wondered how he could still stand. This was truly the great demon himself. Defeated, Killman admitted he couldn't win against such power. Helkuldun surveyed the carnage, thinking that no human could stop this disaster. He stood silently for a moment, noting the near annihilation of the heaven forces and, glancing around, the heavy losses among his own soldiers. His thoughts briefly touched on Seldura and Tarm, and even Kella, guessing they weren't coming after all. He dismissed the thought. This was his fight from the start. He gathered his last remaining mana, preparing to end everything. Kella and Rin sprinted through a dark passage. Kella spotted the exit ahead, the escape route beyond the castle surveillance. Freedom was within reach. Suddenly, Rin cried out a warning as blinding light and crackling dark energy erupted before them. They recoiled, sensing the strong scent of blood. Hooded figures emerged from the shadows. The lead figure remarked that Helkuldun was also trying to evacuate his children, confirming they knew Kella and Rin were coming and had hidden there just in case. Kella cursed. They'd placed a surveillance team at the secret exit, so Heaven knew about the construction all along. The mages declared no member of the Demon King's family would live and launched their attack. Rin leaped forward, shielding Kella, determined to hold them off. Kella protested, asking what she could possibly do alone. Rin fiercely declared her priority was protecting him, her master. Kella internally recalled Rin's limited abilities, simple defense magic, and barely any offensive capability. He realized she planned to sacrifice herself. Rin urged him to hurry and escape. Kella grabbed her arm, yanking her behind him as she protested, telling her not to act all strong. If she insisted on following, she shouldn't die in front of him. It would just piss him off. Rin stared, momentarily stunned. One of the mages mocked Kella, saying he had no escape now, recalling intel that middle-class magic was sufficient for the weakest prince. Kella clenched his fist, thinking how timid he used to be, never showing his true capabilities, meaning their intel was hilariously outdated. Rin looked on in amazement. The mage, launching an attack, sputtered in disbelief, thinking Kella's mana was low rank. Kella moved swiftly, slamming the mage into the ground. He sneered, advising the mage to check his sources next time. Maybe try Wikidemonpedia? He grabbed the downed mage's face, unleashing another blast, leaving him broken. Rin gasped. Amazing defeated a heaven mage so easily. The other mages were stunned, stating Kella should be a powerless wimp. Kella repeated that their information was wrong. Seeing no choice, the remaining mages decided to use the light spear spell, a technique pooling all their mana into one attack, knowing failure meant their deaths. Rin screamed for Kella to get back as the spears formed, striking her as she shielded him. Kella found himself unable to move, caught in the spell's binding effect. Rin apologized, feeling she couldn't protect him. The mages gasped, believing it worked, declaring it Kella's end. One mage then suggested they deserved a reward, asking if Rin wouldn't be fun to play with. Rin cursed them, declaring she knew everything they'd done to demons. The mage silenced her, holding a blade near. Kella grit his teeth. Even humans here treated others like objects? The mage turned, intent on killing the Demon King's little baby first. Kella felt despair. The exit so close. Enraged, he was nearly there. The mage lunged, shouting for Kella to die. Rin screamed his name. Kella froze. A strange feeling washed over him. Something was coming. Kella remained frozen, stunned by the light spear spell. A peculiar feeling washed over him. Someone powerful was approaching. Suddenly, a spectral, purple-tinged figure appeared before him. The presence of his father, Helkildun. Kella wondered, shocked, if the battle was already over. The apparition of Helkildun acknowledged that Kella's plan might now be ruined. Helkildun's voice seemed distant as he explained that he had fought countless times and considered every possibility. Kella, confused, asked what he meant. His father continued, describing Seldura's selfishness and Tarm's lack of true ambition. Impatient, Kella demanded to know how his father was even there. Helkildun revealed the unique ability of a Demon King, to pass his mana down to his bloodline just before dying. Kella reeled from the implication. Helkildun stated that, although briefly, he had seen Kella as the best candidate to be a proper Demon King. Kella frantically denied it, insisting his father was mistaken. Helkildun declared his intention, preparing to pass down all the mana left in his body directly to his son, Kella Kaldun. Kella screamed, telling him to stop. Helkildun addressed his son one last time, instructing him not to mourn, but to embrace the ruthlessness of a true demon. Miles away, on the ravaged battlefield, Helkildun's imposing final form finally dissipated. Commander Srills gasped his name, declaring the Demon King dead. She acknowledged General Kilman's sacrifice had made it possible, tears welling for her fallen leader. The remaining Heaven soldiers echoed the news in disbelief, then erupted in cheers, proclaiming Helkildun's death and their victory. They believed they were the victors now. Back in the passage, Kella cried out as immense power surged into him. The light spear spell, unable to contain the influx, shattered. Rin stared, astonished that Kella's mana had dispersed the attack. The remaining Heaven mages wondered frantically about the sudden, massive increase in his power. Kella managed a weak, pained laugh, processing the influx of power and the undeniable confirmation that Helkildun was truly dead. His escape plan had worked, just not entirely as he had planned. The mages, realizing they were out of mana, decided retreat was their only option. Kella pushed Rin protectively behind him. He felt an overwhelming void of darkness. The power Hell had gifted him, warning the mages not to come closer. He coldly asked them what vile things they had said to Rin earlier, dark energy swirling violently around him. With chilling certainty, he declared that they were the true demons, unleashing a devastating blast. The mages were torn apart by the raw power, left broken on the floor. Kella acknowledged the immense strength as Hell's power, but felt his own body straining under the unfamiliar load, unable to handle so much just yet. He turned to Rin, asking if she could move. She affirmed she could. He instructed her to get moving, and they ran toward the exit. He silently thanked Hell. Because of that power transfer, he could finally escape the castle. They burst out into the bright sunlight of the world outside. Kella stopped, breathing the open air, realizing he was finally free. A slow, genuine laugh escaped him. He could go anywhere now, live the life he wanted. Suddenly, a brilliant beam of light shot down from the sky. Kella stared, confused by the phenomenon. Rin recognized it instantly, shouting that it was a teleportation spell. Kella looked alarmed, reaching out desperately for Rin to take his hand. But she was too far. The light intensified, engulfing Kella completely and pulling him skyward. Far below, the light deposited him high above a sprawling, unfamiliar island city surrounded by water, descending rapidly towards it. Completely disoriented, Kella frantically wondered where on earth he was. Chapter 9. Welcome to Arsal. Disoriented by the sudden teleportation, Kella frantically questioned their location. Rin, equally surprised but recognizing the magic, addressed him tentatively. Kella remarked that he hadn't known Rin could use teleportation magic, but she clarified it wasn't her doing. She explained it felt like an alarm spell their father had placed on them, activating upon his death. Rin then noticed, surprised, that all her wounds had healed. Kella surmised they must have spent roughly 3 days within the teleportation space, allowing time for recovery. He understood now. Helkeldun had intentionally designed the spell to heal them during emergencies. Rin marveled that it was a healing and teleportation spell combined into one powerful failsafe. Kella mused that placing such protective spells perhaps showed a sliver of parental concern from his father. Rin softly asked if this truly meant the Demon King had passed away, which Kella confirmed as they walked. Internally, Kella smirked. His father's death went just as he had planned, though the method was unexpected. Rin then turned to him, earnestly pleading for him to become the next Demon King. Kella glanced back, questioning why he would do such a thing. Rin insisted that seeing his recent changes, his power, his decisiveness, even freeing her, convinced her he was the one truly fit for the throne. She vowed to serve him faithfully until he claimed his title. Kella paused, thinking she completely misunderstood his goals, but sighed and agreed, reasoning that he lacked manpower anyway, and her help, however misguided, was useful for now. Rin asked him to wait. They approached a grand, unfamiliar structure. Rin identified it with dread as Arsal, the magic country dedicated solely to nurturing talent for defeating demons. Banners flew, proclaiming the death of Demon King Helkeldun and celebrating the eternal light of Talua. Kella stared, aghast at ending up in the heart of enemy territory. He worried about what would happen if they were discovered. Rin quickly suggested using transformation magic before they were seen. Kella agreed, adopting a disguise alongside her. Even the original, weaker Kella could manage transformation magic. Now clad in simple cloaks, Kella asked Rin to tell him everything she knew about Arsal. She explained it was a small island nation on Talua's eastern border, blessed by a giant sea cryptid named Watergore, affectionately nicknamed Willy by locals probably. This blessing fostered natural magic development, producing many strong mages. As a country under Talua's control, Arsal had been a long-standing enemy of the demons. Kella absorbed the information, pondering why his father would send him to such a dangerous place. Rin, still processing, nervously asked why he'd walk in the capital after hearing all that, urging him to run. Kella coolly stated that running away required preparation first. He knew magic was crucial to achieving his dreams in this world, and in Arsal, everything ran on magic. It was even used in common buildings, some of which floated ethereally. If he could learn magic here, he could build even more elaborate things than in the game. Just then, Rin's stomach growled loudly. Kella suggested they eat first, spotting a food stall. Rin eagerly tried the famous magic dish of Arsal, declaring it delicious. She excitedly pointed to another stall, then another food item, equally delighted. Kella briefly considered ditching her there while she was distracted by snacks. Rin then suggested visiting a magic bar to relax. Inside the noisy tavern, a man announced drinks were free to celebrate the Demon King's subjugation. The crowd cheered wildly for Commander Srills, hailed as the hope of Arsal and the greatest mage of Talcan. Kella and Rin found themselves swept up in the revelry, both getting tipsy despite being lightweights. Kella conceded, leaning against Rin slightly, that maybe taking a break wasn't so bad after all. Just then, Shrills noticed them. The flushed pair raised their mugs. Shrills smirked, observing the seemingly interesting couple that had stumbled into her celebration. The celebration proved too much for Kella, who found himself emptying his stomach in an alley. Rin scolded him for drinking excessively when he couldn't handle alcohol, especially at a festival celebrating his own father's demise, reminding him that drinking was his idea in the first place. Their bickering was interrupted by shouts announcing a new S-rank quest. Kella wondered about the commotion, while Rin found it unbelievable, given the Demon King was supposedly dead. She recalled that hunting Helkeldun had previously been the sole S-rank quest. Curiosity piqued. Rin dragged Kella towards the rapidly forming crowd. A new wanted poster was being displayed, depicting Kella himself. Murmurs spread through the crowd about the Demon King's children surviving. Kella and Rin stared at the poster in shock. Rin confirmed the image was indeed Kella. Outraged, Kella yelled, questioning why he had a bounty now that his father was gone. Rin quickly clamped a hand over his mouth, laughing nervously and explaining to the onlookers that her companion was simply very drunk. The crowd dismissed Kella as the weakest prince, assuming the quest would be easy, more like a B-rank job, with many hunters likely eager for the reward. Kella scowled, realizing he needed to keep a low profile. He told Rin they needed to leave. Rin agreed, suddenly unsure how to address him publicly without revealing his identity. After a moment's thought, Kella told her to call him Chiwu. Rin repeated the strange name, confused, but Kella insisted. He noted grimly that people realizing he was alive this quickly was bad news. They needed supplies before leaving Arsal, Rin readily agreeing, addressing him as young Master Chiwu. Just then, Shrills approached, asking if the rumors of another S-rank quest were true. Kella and Rin nervously confirmed they'd only glanced at the notice. Kella remembered the tavern cheers, identifying Shrills as the hope of Arsal, clearly an important figure. Shrills took a long drink, muttering about the Demon King's son still being alive and cursing those damn demons. Kella attempted to downplay the threat, remarking that Kella was supposed to be weak anyway, with Rin quickly agreeing it wasn't a big deal. Shrills eyed them sharply, making them both flinch. She leaned in, questioning how it won't be a big deal that the Demon King's son lived. She added that she'd noticed earlier how they smelled rather strange. Rin panicked internally, certain they were caught. Shrill's expression turned menacing. Then, her face broke into a wide grin as she declared they must be travelers needing a bath, inviting them to her place to wash up and drink more. Smelling like adventure, or maybe just BO, she didn't specify. Kella and Rin exchanged bewildered looks. Shrills cheerfully slung her arms around their shoulders, leading them off, much to their confused relief. Shrill's home was impressive, some parts even floating magically. Soon, Kella was soaking in luxurious hot springs water, enjoying unfamiliar tea and snacks served on a floating tray. He wondered if even the food was made with magic. He relaxed, thinking how he'd always wanted to live in a game world. His dream had essentially come true. This ice sky life wasn't half bad, he mused contentedly. Elsewhere in the bath, Rin was internally frantic, telling herself to get it together before she was discovered. Shrills, also bathing, cheerfully asked Rin if the tub wasn't nice. She inquired why Rin seemed so nervous, jokingly asking if she was a demon who'd been caught. Rin forced a loud laugh, denying it vehemently. Shrills then produced a glowing orb, saying she'd use a scent to help Rin relax. Rin immediately recognized the holy element aura, the worst possible thing for a demon, realizing it drained mana and would break her disguise spell. She silently screamed for Kella's help, while Kella remained blissfully unaware, sipping his tea. Continuing her monologue in the steaming bath, Shrills confided in Rin, expressing a belief that all her suffering would cease once the Demon King died. Rin, still feeling the effects of the holy scent, desperately wanted to leave, covering her mouth and telling Shrills to stop talking so much. Shrills, ignoring Rin's discomfort, mentioned how she was designated to become a mage from birth as she started with her flashback. Overwhelmed, Rin suddenly burst from the water, sputtering that Shrills could reminisce later. She needed the restroom immediately and dashed out. Shrills watched her go with a knowing smirk, guessing the holy scent hadn't agreed with her. Rin found Kella outside, looking far too relaxed after his bath. She frantically recounted the near disaster, explaining that the hot spring water was fine, but Shrills used a holy scent, nearly undoing her disguise. She stressed how potent holy elements manifested by advanced mages could drain a demon's mana. Kella acknowledged the close call, then cheekily suggested taking another bath before leaving, earning an exasperated glare from Rin. Just then, Shrills emerged, fully dressed, questioning their sudden desire to leave after agreeing to a second round. Rin stammered an excuse about needing to go. Shrills, however, tempted them, asking if they weren't curious about drinks and dishes made with magic, dangling a glowing blue orb temptingly. Kella's ears perked up at the mention of food magic. He readily agreed to the second round, dragging a protesting Rin, who muttered his real name under her breath, along with the enthusiastic Shrills. Later that night, mages gathered stealthily outside Shrill's residence under the full moon. They confirmed the presence of demons, specifically noting the Demon King's child was inside, a rare opportunity they couldn't miss. Inside the seemingly normal house, Shrills served Kella and Rin drinks, asking their opinion and casually mentioning they were made with holy water. Both demons forced down the drink, feeling an internal burning sensation. Kella cursed inwardly, disappointed after getting excited about food magic. Shrills then picked up her earlier conversation with Rin, speaking of the life she'd lived. She explained her all-consuming goal, killing the Demon King, joining the Talcon squad, and training with her life on the line. She lifted her shirt slightly, revealing a harsh scar across her abdomen received during a past test. Kella noted he hadn't seen that scar earlier. Shrills gave a wry smile, admitting it wasn't nice to look at, before revealing the scarred socket where her left eye should be, stating she didn't actually have an eye there either. Kella and Rin stared, shocked. She explained she hid both injuries with magic, as seeing them constantly brought back the phantom pain of that day. A flashback showed a brutal training ground, an instructor yelling at a fallen, younger Shrills to get up, reminding her that their squad's sole purpose was taking down the Demon King. He demanded she endure the pain, shouting at her to declare their goal. Young Shrills, clutching her bleeding eye, screamed back their objective, killing the Demon King. Back in the present, Shrills recounted sacrificing her life and gaining those scars. She abruptly leaned towards Kella, asking what he'd meant about Kella being weak. Her hand reached out, touching his abdomen, questioning if he bore similar scars. Kella tensed. Shrills noted how smooth his skin was, suspiciously free of scars. Rin gasped his true name in alarm. Kella realized Shrill's touch was disrupting his disguise magic. Shrills leaned closer, whispering his assumed name, Chi Wu, then declared he was a demon. Kella internally cursed. She had known. Suddenly, white rats swarmed across the floor. As they transformed to armored mages burst violently into the room. Shrills reacted, acknowledging the mage's arrival. Kella and Rin instantly suspected a trap. Shrills calmly greeted the intruders, confirming they were all there. The lead mage pointed to Shrill's revealed scarred eye, declaring Heaven's intel correct. She'd been hiding her true self. He proclaimed loudly that Shrills was a demon who had infiltrated Arsal. Kella and Rin were utterly stunned by the accusation. Kella realized the mages weren't there for them, but for Shrills. She was a demon? Shrills let her demonic staff materialize, confirming she had no reason to hide anymore, and confessed with a grin that she had leaked the intel about herself. The mages, needing no further proof, commanded their troops to kill her. Shrill scoffed, reminding them she was an elite mage of Talcan, not someone a mere dozen Arsal mages could handle, gathering powerful dark energy. Rin yelled for Chi Wu to get back. Kella knew this was bad. Shrills unleashed the dark energy in a massive explosion. When the dust settled, Shrills stood defiantly, Kella and Rin unexpectedly unharmed behind her. They stared, wondering if she had just protected them. Shrills turned, stating they were demons too, unable to hide it from her. She then revealed her true identity. Shrills Khaldun, daughter of the late demon king Hel Khaldun. Shrills declared her full name, Shrills Khaldun, revealing herself as a daughter of the late demon king Hel Khaldun. Kella and Rin stared, utterly flabbergasted by this unexpected family reunion. With little time before the mages outside regrouped, Shrills announced she would use memory transfer magic to quickly bring them up to speed, touching their foreheads as purple energy flowed. Their minds were flooded with Shrill's past. They saw a younger Helkaldun standing before a small, dirt-covered girl, the sole success of brutal demonic experiments, a demon capable of hiding her horns and power. The girl recognized the absolute ruler instantly. Helkaldun acknowledged her lineage, confirming his blood ran through her veins, making her his daughter. The young girl reeled from shock. She had only known life as a lab rat, enduring endless, agonizing experiments day after day, her only option being survival. All the other children created alongside her had perished. She had expected to die, just like them. Yet, here stood the Demon King, claiming her as his daughter. Overwhelmed but resolute, she declared an honor. Helkaldun bestowed upon her the name Shrills Khaldun and gave her a mission: infiltrate heaven as a spy. Young Shrills readily accepted, willing to do anything for the father she had just met. The memories shifted, showing Shrills collapsed outside Arsal's grand walls. Mages found her, assuming she was a child victim of a demon attack. They carried her back for treatment, unknowingly welcoming the Demon King's spy into their midst. Shrills endured rigorous training, rising through the ranks of Arsal's mages until she became one of the strongest in the elite Talcon squad. 15 years passed before she saw her father again, across a desolate battlefield. She desperately wanted to run to him, but couldn't break her cover. Her goal was so close. Her true mission required patience. Secretly use magic to hinder the Talcon squad and support her father until he defeated General Killman. She envisioned returning to the castle with him afterward, finally living a real life as Shrills Khaldun. The memory flashed to the climax of the battle. Killman acknowledged Helkaldun's strength, but the Demon King scoffed at needing human validation. Killman, preparing to end things, unleashed his ultimate attack, the Spear of Heaven's Marauders. Helkaldun countered with the Flames of Hell, Magnalexer. Shrills cried out in horror as the overwhelming energies collided. In that instant, she heard her father's voice telepathically. He called her name, Shrills Khaldun, his daughter, giving her one final command: serve the next Demon King as she had served him, protecting him until the very end. The explosion consumed Helkaldun. Shrills watched in anguish as her father disintegrated. With backup forces arriving, Shrills had no choice but to return to Talua. The entire continent celebrated the Demon King's death, a sight Shrills observed with cold detachment. She retired from Talcan, returning to Arsal, her second home, the place her mission began. She vowed to start anew, dedicating herself to avenging her father by destroying his enemies, starting with Arsal itself. The memory transfer ended. Rin stammered, finding it impossible to believe Shrills was the Demon King's daughter. Kella internally groaned. Just when he thought he was free of his psycho siblings, another one pops up, though thankfully not blood-related this time. Shrill stated she wouldn't force their cooperation, but issued a stern warning. Arsal, the magic country, was a core threat. As the last hope of the Demonkin, Kella's survival depended on Arsal's destruction. The longer it stood, the sooner he would die. Kella clenched his fist, realizing she was right. Mages were crucial forces, and leaving Arsal unchecked put him directly in danger. Outside, the lead mage rallied his forces, eager to claim credit for capturing Shrills before reinforcements arrived after hearing the earlier explosion. He ordered them to attack with full power. Kella noted bitterly that these mages attacked without hesitation, even when they likely assumed Kella and Rin were fellow humans. Rin noticed a change in Kella. Small, glowing horns erupted from Kella's head as he smirked, declaring this was simply self-defense. Shrills gasped, shocked. The energy radiating from Kella was unmistakable. It was their father's power. That night, Kella and Shrills unleashed an endless battle upon Arsal. Kella reflected that to the horrified Rin, it must have looked like an outright massacre. But for Shrills, Arsal was a second home. She knew its layout intimately. With ruthless efficiency, she destroyed the main government facilities and the Magic Academy. Kella, tapping into Helkeldun's mana, dealt swiftly with the power-drunk fools still celebrating the festival, cutting them down without mercy. Their combined demonic power proved overwhelming. The nation of magic, Arsal, was swiftly taken down, its structures crumbling under relentless assault. Flames engulfed the city, painting the very skies red as Kella and Rin surveyed the devastation. One surviving mage stared in disbelief, unable to accept Arsal could fall so easily. He spat defiance, vowing never to forgive the demons. Shrills silenced him with a blast of energy, retorting that she was the one who couldn't forgive them. With Arsal crushed, she declared her intent to destroy the Talcan squad and the Empire of Talua next, ending them all. Kella and Rin were taken aback by the sheer scale of her vengeful ambition. Feeling they had helped enough, Kella decided it was time for them to part ways, but Shrills stopped him. She questioned if he thought she wouldn't recognize their father's mana, confirming his identity as Kella Khaldun, the second son. Seeing no point in denying it, Kella tiredly admitted she was right. Shrills gasped, confirming Kella's suspicion that she might have just been guessing. She explained that while initially suspicious, his mana confirmed it. She clarified she wasn't a traditional daughter, but a mutant created from their father's blood aura, acknowledging Kella as the true bloodline. Since she was made after him, she playfully declared him her older brother, a title Kella vehemently rejected internally. Assuming he sought vengeance too, she invited him to join her. Kella scoffed internally at the idea of revenge, having just run away from home. Shrills pressed, asking if he was truly running away, reminding him he was the only remaining child of the Demon King. Rin pleaded nervously for Kella to agree, sensing the deadly threats Shrills posed if refused. Kella resignedly agreed, stating he would get revenge. He felt he had little choice. Shrills grinned, ready to burn everything down. Kella agreed tersely, pulling Rin close. He reasoned internally that he needed Arsal's magic knowledge anyway, and Shrills wouldn't know it all. He could stall for time, using revenge as an excuse, treating her as an ally for now. They left the ruins, observed by the wounded mage. That mage managed to send an urgent report to Talua. An advisor informed the great king of Talua about the message. The king, interrupted during his meal, demanded to know the urgent news. The advisor reported that Shrills was confirmed a demon. Arsal mages tried to eliminate her. But Kella Khaldun appeared and burned Arsal to the ground alongside her. The king slammed his fist down, enraged. The Demon King's son was an Arsal? The advisor, Hayden, suggested Kella likely had connections to Shrills. The king fumed. Shrills being a demon was bad enough, but Kella destroying Arsal? If this got out, they'd be a laughingstock. He ordered Hayden to kill both Shrills and Kella immediately, threatening his position if he failed. Hayden swore on his name to kill them and departed. He paused before the preserved head of Helkeldun, muttering about the Demon King's troublesome bloodline and vowing to burn away all who carried it. Elsewhere in the palace, the king demanded news of the Killian squad. Hayden assured him General Killian should have received the message and was ordered to return immediately. Hayden considered Killian the best knight, surpassing even the deceased Killman, and absolutely necessary to hunt down Kella and Shrills. Miles away, on a desolate mountain, a white-haired man named Killian read a scroll. A messenger confirmed his brother, Killman, died bravely killing the Demon King. Killian remained impassive, merely stating Killman was killed by a demon. The messenger relayed Talua's need for him to hunt Kelikaldun. Killian declared he didn't care what Talua wanted. Since demons killed his brother, he would kill every demon on the continent, starting with Kelikaldun. Killian, consumed by vengeance for his brother's death, vowed to slaughter every demon on the continent, starting specifically with Kelikaldun. Later, around a crackling magical campfire, Kella, Rin, and Shrill shared a massive roast. Kella wondered aloud who could possibly eat so much meat. Rin asked Shrills if she had a secret for staying slim despite her appetite. Shrills nonchalantly replied that if it goes in and out quickly, you won't get fat, a surprisingly simple, if slightly TMI, dietary tip. Rin seemed awestruck by this miracle theory. Kella mused internally that at least Shrills wasn't actively trying to kill him like Seldora or Tarm, though he had worried she might resent him for being the main bloodline. He decided to ask Shrills directly if she held anything against him for being their father's biological child. Shrills admitted bluntly that she did, to the point where she wanted to kill him, confirming Kella's expectation. However, she continued, because he shared the same blood as the father she revered, she couldn't truly hate him. Furthermore, possessing their father's blood meant she felt obligated to protect him however she could. Kella was surprised. Unlike his other siblings, this one intended to protect him. Shrills grasped his hand firmly, promising to put her life on the line to keep him alive from now on. Kella, flustered, managed a simple thanks. Rin immediately shrieked, asking why he was blushing. She then tried to force-feed Kella her portion, insisting he needed to eat after using so much mana. Kella tried to calm her down, assuring her he understood her frantic vow to protect his health until death. Shrills noted that news of Arsal's fall would soon spread, drawing demon hunters, making their current location unsafe. Kella, however, saw it differently, declaring it a great place to stay. He explained with a grin that with a little effort, they could turn it into an impenetrable secret fortress. Following Kella's plan, they altered the terrain, creating a hidden base. While resting and recovering their mana, Kella reflected that even the Demon King needed rest after battles. Shrills, having expended even more energy, needed a longer recovery period. They recuperated safely within their newly constructed fortress. Meanwhile, back in Talua, a herald announced the arrival of Talkin's second squad, the Talkin of White, led by Killian. The king remarked that just looking at them gave him goosebumps. He welcomed their return, calling them his strongest squad. A squad member named Deed complimented Killian on his rapid increase in strength, suggesting General Killman would have been pleased. Another member, Audria, loudly scolded Deed for his improper tone, prompting Deed to note her usual loudness. A scarred warrior, Kalka, asked Killian if they must heed the king's summons, adding that killing Kelikaldun now wouldn't satisfy his anger. Killian apologized to Kalka, stating he first needed to show something to Curdly, a cloaked woman. Inside the palace, Killian led his squad to the preserved head of Helkaldun. Killian identified the head as his brother's killer. Deed muttered disgust, hushed by the others. Killian asked Curdly if the tracking spell would work with just the head. Curdly affirmed it was possible. The bloodstains would allow her to search for those of the same bloodline, channeling magic towards the head. Killian addressed the head directly, telling Helkaldun to keep his eyes open and watch what they were about to do. The lifeless eyes seemed to glint. Back at the fortress, Shrills, now recovered, declared it was time to hunt the bastards, anticipating the imminent arrival of Talkin's second squad. Rin questioned the name. Shrills explained that Talua never truly expected the first squad, Killman's, to succeed against the Demon King. They were essentially an experiment. The squad Talua poured its real strength into was the second squad, the Talkin of White, led by Killman's younger brother, Killian, and composed entirely of combat geniuses. Kella processed this, asking if Killman, his father's killer, was weaker than this new squad. Shrills admitted reluctantly that they were indeed far stronger than Killman, though she couldn't estimate by how much. Kella's expression hardened as he prepared to face this significantly more dangerous threat. Shrills grimly confirmed the Talcan of White were far superior to Killman, their true skill unpredictable. Kella's expression remained steely, considering the implications. Rin, ever practical and easily panicked, worriedly asked how they could possibly invade Talua against such foes. Shrills explained the elite squad had been in isolation training, requiring time to reassemble, making an immediate strike on Talua necessary. Kella countered, noting Talua's vast size compared to Arsal. Mere luck wouldn't secure victory this time. He offered a different approach, reminding Shrills that the squad hunting him was likely already assembled due to the urgency of his bounty. Attacking Talua now, just the three of them, was nonsensical. They needed to develop an army and build their own base first. The mention of an army and base caught Shrills and Rin by surprise. Kella elaborated, envisioning an army capable of matching the Talcan of White and a base impenetrable even to Talua's forces. He declared, with a flash of manic energy, their goal, constructing the strongest dungeon imaginable. Both Shrills and Rin were stunned by the concept of building a dungeon. Kella stressed they couldn't gamble on uncertain battles, lest they end up like his father. He reiterated the plan to create the ultimate dungeon and then wage war against Talua. Shrills readily agreed, impressed by the strategy she expected from her father's son. Kella mentally patted himself on the back for pulling that idea out of thin air. Eager to begin, Shrills mentioned knowing some demons they could recruit and declared they should go find them. She and Rin cheered enthusiastically for the coming war, much to Kella's mild amusement. He acknowledged internally that this plan was primarily a stalling tactic. His true ambition remained creating his own perfect, uninterrupted world, like a game map made real. Stealing his resolve, Kella asked Shrills about the trustworthy demons she knew. He specified needing someone with extensive knowledge of geography and terrain for their first recruit. Shrills pondered for a moment, then brightly announced she knew just the demon and urged them onward. As they journeyed through the mountains, Kella began studying Arsal's magic from a book Shrills provided, Rin peering curiously over his shoulder. The magic seemed complex, something he shouldn't have grasped so quickly, but his Demon King blood accelerated his learning significantly. He felt a sense of accomplishment, learning and using magic with his own hands, feeling closer to his ultimate goal. 4 days later, they arrived in a barren, desolate landscape. Kella questioned why any demon would live there. Shrills explained grimly that the land hadn't always been this way, not until Talcan forces staged an ambush here. Kella and Rin exchanged confused glances. Shrills suddenly warned them both not to move. Orc-like demons erupted from the earth, shouting defiance at the perceived Talcan invaders, demanding to know if they had returned. One lunged fiercely at Shrills, vowing death to Talcan. Shrills coolly noted the demons clearly hadn't heard she'd switched teams. Talk about being out of the loop. Rin yelled frantically, asking why Shrills wasn't defending herself. Kella silenced her with a sharp command. He advised letting the situation play out. The lead demon angrily questioned Shrill's lack of resistance, asking if she deemed them unworthy opponents. Shrills bowed slightly in apology, stating she would accept their rage until they felt better. The lead demon recognized the symbolic pose, known only among their kind. Shrills formally apologized again, this time as a fellow demon. The Earth demons were shocked, recalling she had arrived with Talcan soldiers previously. Kella stepped forward, confirming Shrill's words were true. He declared himself the last remaining child of the Demon King Hel Kaldun, vouching for Shrill's allegiance. The powerful demonic energy radiating from Kella washed over the Earth demons, leaving no doubt about his identity. Instantly recognizing young Master Kella, they fell to their knees, offering their greetings to His Highness. Rin beamed beside Kella. Shrill smirked, pointing out how they acknowledged him as the rightful heir. Kella looked thoughtfully towards the nearby cliffside settlement. He allowed himself a small smile. Perhaps building his army wouldn't be so difficult after all. The Earth demons erupted in cheers, recognizing the great Demon King's son, Kella done, and offering their formal greetings. Their elder approached, promising to prepare anything Kella needed and eagerly awaited his orders. Kella observed their settlement, noting the unique architecture, different from both the Demon King's castle and Arsal. He was impressed they had built such a sturdy city primarily from natural materials without magic, praising its excellent strategic placement. He never imagined such a large, hidden underground city existed, as the earth demons rarely showed themselves. Kella conceded Shrills was right. They definitely needed the earth demon's talent. Shrills smugly acknowledged his agreement. Setting aside the general population, Shrills mentioned another specific, excellent warrior they should recruit. Kella inquired about this warrior. Shrills explained how Talcan, under General Kilman, had discovered this hidden city while journeying to the Demon King's castle years ago. Kilman, disgusted at finding hidden demons, had ordered the extermination of the filthy earth demons. His soldiers set the concealing forest ablaze, burning the city and nearly wiping out the earth demons. But then, a brave warrior named Douglas stood against them, condemning the massacre of non-combatants and vowing to protect the children from those lacking a warrior's pride. Kilman, observing this unexpected defense, asked the warrior his name. The demon proudly declared himself Douglas, son of the earth demons. Kilman noted the name, lamenting that such a warrior wasn't born human. Impressed, or perhaps just pragmatic, Kilman ordered his troops to cease combat and continue their journey. Douglas was left stunned. Shrills, who had witnessed this disguise within Kilman's ranks, told Douglas his bravery saved his tribe. Back in the present, Shrills finished her story, explaining Douglas stayed and protected the children until the very end. Kella and Rin were impressed. Even his name sounded trustworthy. Kella mused that an earth demon capable of combat was exactly what he hoped for. Over dinner, Kella expressed his desire to meet this Douglas. The earth demon elder hesitated, warning that Douglas was quite stubborn and suggesting Kella might be better off looking elsewhere. Kella firmly refused, insisting he would bring Douglas along and demanded to know his location. They found Douglas working tirelessly in a forge. Kella questioned his refusal to obey. Douglas hammered away, stating that while Kella might be the Demon King's son, he wasn't obligated to follow him. Kella asked what would happen if he used force. Douglas retorted fiercely that he would die fighting. Kella inquired why he was so determined to remain. Douglas explained he was born and raised there, duty-bound to protect his homeland, which he could not leave. Kella acknowledged the demon was indeed as stubborn as reported. Douglas offered a curt apology. Kella felt a pang of disappointment, mentally comparing this recruitment attempt to frustrating gacha game pulls for rare orc allies, just as luck. If Douglas would rather die, it couldn't be helped. Kella paused, then turned away from the forge, admiring the city's efficient architecture again. He still wished someone with the Earth Demon's knowledge would serve him. Just then, Shrills and Rin reappeared, already drunk and raving about how amazing the Earth Demon liquor was, urging Kella to try some. Kella grumbled internally about the damn drunkards hindering his investigation. Rin shoved a large wooden mug at him. Taking a sip, Kella was bewildered, tasting yams in the beer, and questioned Rin, who had no idea what yams were. Shrills laughed, dismissing Kella's yam talk as drunken nonsense. The elder chuckled, observing they were all drunk already, and instructed his attendants to escort the guests to their best resting chambers. Later, Kella slept soundly in the provided room. The door creaked open quietly. Heavy boots stepped inside. An axe glinted as it was raised high above the sleeping Kella. Douglas stood over him, axe poised, calling Kella a wuss before bringing the weapon down violently. Chapter 17. The Hidden Truth and Boiling Rage. Douglas recoiled in shock, wondering how Kella could possibly know. Kella, eyes snapping open as the axe hovered inches from his neck, simply stated fine, confirming his suspicions were correct. He wasn't asleep. Douglas realized this too late as Kella vaulted off the bed. The other earth demons, alerted by the commotion, stormed in, calling Kella a coward and urging Douglas to kill him. Kella landed crouched on the floor, his initial skepticism about the Earth demons now fully justified. His mind raced back through the clues. He recalled seeing Douglas at the forge earlier, suspiciously crafting items that weren't weapons, restraints too small for any Earth demon. He remembered the feeling of being watched while exploring the village, prompting him to pay closer attention. That led him to discover a wall hidden by a subtle magic barrier, one so faint he likely wouldn't have detected it without the inherited sensitivity of the Demon King's mana. Then there was the final, crucial detail. Shrills had specifically mentioned Douglas protecting young dark elves during Kilman's attack. Yet, Kella hadn't seen a single dark elf, young or old, anywhere in the village. Suddenly, everything clicked into place like a terrible puzzle. Channeling his demonic power, Kella surged forward, striking Douglas with blinding speed and sending the larger demon staggering back. Kella confronted him, stating Douglas hadn't told Kilman he couldn't let the elves die, but rather that he couldn't hand them over. The distinction was critical. It wasn't about protection, Kella accused, but possession. Douglas simply didn't want his valuable assets taken away. Douglas stared, aghast. How could Kella have deduced the truth? Kella coolly suggested they go release that magic barrier now. Hearing the disturbance, a crowd of earth demons gathered outside, calling out to their great warrior Douglas as Kella held him captive. Kella realized with grim certainty that the entire village must have been complicit in this secret. The elder cursed Douglas loudly for failing his task. Douglas could only grit his teeth and offer a mumbled apology. Kella pressed a blade of pure energy against Douglas's throat, warning the assembled demons that any movement would mean their warrior's death. The elder cursed again, bewildered how the supposedly cowardly Kella had unraveled their deception. Near a seemingly ordinary building, Kella ordered Douglas to open the hidden door. With visible reluctance, Douglas pressed a gem against a hidden mechanism on the wall, deactivating the barrier. The wall slid silently open, revealing a dark, cramped space filled with emaciated, terrified dark elves huddled together in restraints. Kella stared, appalled. Their condition was far worse than anything he could have imagined. Just then, Shrills and Rin arrived, rushing towards Kella, relieved he was all right and cursing the ambushers, only to stop dead in their tracks, equally stunned by the horrifying sight within the hidden room. Turning to Shrills, Kella requested she perform memory transfer magic on one of the dark elves. Shrills agreed, noting the memories would be less clear than her own, but confirming it was possible. Kella nodded grimly, telling her to proceed. Shrills focused her magic, drawing out the memories of a young, terrified dark elf female and channeling them into Kella. The images flooded Kella's mind, a living hell. He saw forced pregnancies, lives born only into captivity, shadowy figures of human nobles, selected children, tearing them away from their mothers to be sold by the earth demons for piles of coin. Occasionally, captured outsiders would whisper tales of the world beyond, of unending skies, blue oceans, fantastic foods, and a simple freedom to travel, concepts utterly alien to the captive elves. Their only wish, often uttered before death claimed them, was for even one child to escape and experience the wonders of the outside world. This pathetic, exploited existence filled Kella with cold disgust. Raw fury erupted within him as he turned back to Douglas, teeth bared, roaring curses at the treacherous earth demons. Douglas flinched back in surprise. With a final, enraged yell, Kella slammed his fist violently into Douglas's face. Chapter 18. Cleansing the Corrupt. Douglas crashed to the ground from the force of Kella's blow. Shrills and Rin reacted with fury, realizing the earth demons hadn't been saving the dark elves, but smuggling them. Spitting blood, Douglas confirmed their horrific trade. Dark elves were rare commodities coveted by human nobles. He tried to justify it, mentioning the elves' affinity for nature brought peace, cynically adding this made them perfect livestock. Shrills and Rin couldn't believe the depravity, enslaving fellow demons. Douglas desperately argued that with the Demon King gone, the elves were essential for their survival against humans. Kella felt a cold rage build, his fist crackling with energy. His own miserable past under his father's thumb flashed through his mind, yet the suffering of these captive children was incomparably worse. He couldn't stand idly by while this continued. Turning to face his companions before the imprisoned elves, Kella declared they would finish the job Kilman started, implying the complete eradication of these corrupt earth demons. Shrills and Rin readily agreed, unable to forgive such a betrayal of their own kind. Kella vowed to cleanse this place. Douglas scrambled to his feet, rallying the remaining earth demons, reminding them there were only 3 intruders. With furious cries, they charged. Rin shouted a warning as the attack began. Shrills angrily questioned how they dared rebel against the Demon King's kin. One demon spat defiance, calling Kella a wuss they had no reason to obey. Rin fiercely countered that Lord Kella would become the next Demon King. Another demon lunged directly at Kella. Kella met the attack, reflecting that this wasn't a game anymore. This was real life, and he finally had the power to change things. He dodged, refusing to remain passive as he once had. From their prison, the Dark Elves watched, one crying out for the Earth demons to be killed. A younger elf named Wood wondered if these newcomers were actually fighting for them, resolving that they had to help. Another elf grabbed Wood, warning him back, telling him it was too dangerous. Others pleaded with him to stay put, terrified of the torture they would face if Kella's group lost. Wood froze, the word torture echoing with traumatic memories. Kella saw the elf's terror. Facing an earth demon, he promised they would receive back all the pain they had inflicted, hearing the echoes of the elves' suffering. The lead earth demon realized a direct fight was failing and pulled out a small, red stone, an earth ore. He bit into it, urging the others to consume theirs, screaming that losing meant losing everything. The remaining earth demons frantically ate their own ores. Rin gasped, recognizing the legendary items she thought were mere myth. Kella demanded to know what they were. Shrills explained the ores massively boosted physical abilities, sometimes dozens of times over, at the cost of the user's lifespan. Douglas began to mutate, growling as his muscles bulged unnaturally. He transformed into a monstrous, hulking brute, roaring his intent to kill Kella. Kella felt the staggering increase in demonic energy and raw power, shocked. He gritted his teeth. He still couldn't access all the abilities his father had passed down. The transformed Douglas charged, bellowing for Kella to prepare himself. Kella braced, knowing this was incredibly dangerous. Douglas's fist flew forward, but before it could land, the ground erupted, encasing the monstrous demon in solid rock, immobilizing him completely. Kella stood before the trapped demon, a cold resolve in his eyes. Never again would he tolerate such exploitation. This corruption ended now. Chapter 19, Unlocked Potential. Picking up immediately after trapping Douglas, Kella turned to the young dark elf, Wood, a predatory grin spreading across his face as he declared his approval. Wood looked startled by the sudden attention. From within his stone prison, Douglas raged, accusing Wood of betrayal despite claiming to have raised the abandoned elf. Suddenly, the stone shattered as Douglas, fueled by the earth ore in sheer fury, broke free, a gaping wound on his chest forgotten as he vowed to kill Wood immediately. Kella reacted with surprise. Not only had Douglas escaped, but his body had grown even larger. The monstrous earth demon ignored Kella, throwing a powerful punch that connected squarely, sending Kella skidding back across the cavern floor. Kella coughed, astonished at the immense power granted by the Earth Magic Stone. Ignoring Kella entirely, Douglas lunged towards the terrified Wood, grabbing the young elf by the throat and promising to rip his head off. Wood choked, struggling against the massive grip. Kella watched, bewildered that Douglas seemed more focused on killing the helpless elf than fighting him, the actual threat. Wood gasped in pain under the pressure. Realizing Douglas was too far for a direct assault and that he desperately needed a long-range attack, Kella focused inward, pleading for any power to manifest. His surroundings abruptly dissolved. Kella found himself floating in an ethereal void, confronted by a mocking, shadowy figure wreathed in dark flames. The entity identified the place as Kella's own consciousness and demanded Kella's attention, urging him to focus on saving Wood rather than asking questions, warning that while time flowed differently here, urgency was still required. Snapped back to the present danger, Kella remembered Wood's peril and demanded if the entity knew a way to save him. The figure explained that Kella wasn't yet ready to wield Helkeldun's full strength, but more power would become available as his mind and body grew attuned. Impatiently, Kella demanded to know what power he could use right now. The entity conceded, revealing one ability was accessible. Before Kella could react further, the figure bid him farewell, using both his demon name, Kella Kaldun, and startlingly, his human name, Kong Chiwu, promising they would meet again. Kella was stunned. How did it know his original name? He snapped back to reality, finding a bow constructed of pure blue energy materializing in his grasp. He recognized it instantly, Hell's fire arrow. Taking aim, he shouted a warning for Wood to protect himself. Douglas, still throttling Wood, paused, momentarily distracted by the surge of power. Wood cried out as the grip tightened again. Douglas cursed the interruption, but Kella declared it was the end for the slaver's dirty deeds. He released the arrow. Douglas stared in disbelief as the bolt of pure energy struck him dead center, erupting in a blinding explosion of blue light. Douglas screamed, engulfed by the power. Kella watched, confirming the direct hit, as the screams continued from within the blast before fading. Kella stood, bow still humming, contemplating the strange entity he'd met within his consciousness. Meanwhile, Rin found herself overwhelmed by the remaining earth demons, and Shrills cursed her inability to use splash magic effectively due to the low ceiling. Kella assured them not to worry, drawing the energy bow once more. He declared he would finish this quickly, loosing a volley of energy arrows that rained down on their attackers. Shrills watched, impressed, recognizing the fire arrow technique, and noting Kella's mana felt even stronger. Kella smirked, glad he now possessed long-range attacks. Things are looking up, very nice indeed. In Chapter 20, New Allies and Unexpected Encounters. Under the moonlit sky, the dust settled over the ruined Earth Demon Village. Kella, Rin, and Shrill surveyed the area, the lingering blue energy fading as Kella confirmed the threat was finally neutralized. Shrills examined a recovered Earth, or remarking that their power far exceeded her expectations. Rin expressed shock, having been unaware the ore's consumed lifespan. Kella pocketed one, stating they definitely needed further investigation. Turning to the gathered dark elves, Kella announced their freedom. He advised them not to get caught by such villains again and to live their lives freely. The elves reacted with disbelief, murmuring the word free as if it were foreign. Kella affirmed their liberty, telling them they could leave this place. Relief washed over them as they realized they could take their children away from this hell. Overcome with emotion, they bowed deeply, thanking Sir Kella profusely. Shrills lamented that their plan to recruit Earth demons as subordinates was now impossible, still vexed at being deceived. Rin agreed it was a shame, but unavoidable. Kella then addressed Wood, confirming the elf wasn't born here, but captured. Wood quietly affirmed this. Kella deduced Wood likely had no family to return to either. Wood sadly agreed again. Kella then made an offer. Come with them, explaining they needed someone capable of navigating the terrain, even if Wood wasn't an Earth demon. Wood hesitated, pointing out his lack of terrain skills and his race. Feeling he would be useless, Kella reassured him, reminding Wood that, as an elf, he received nature's love. Furthermore, Wood had shown bravery facing danger, which was more than enough. Kella extended his hand, telling Wood to get up and join them. Wood looked up, stunned, stammering Kella's name. He reflected on his past. He couldn't even remember his parents' faces, only being abandoned, captured by Douglas, and living a life of constant suffering. He had resigned himself to this hell until death. He hesitantly asked if he could truly leave and follow Kella. Kella corrected him. Wood wouldn't be following. He would be going with them. Tears welled in Wood's eyes at the distinction. Kella helped him up, and Wood managed another quiet thank you as they prepared to depart. They left the mountains behind. The earth demons were dealt with, and the dark elves were saved. Kella admitted slight concern for the elves, who had never known the outside, but reasoned that as demons loved by nature, anywhere would be better than their former prison. Would seem to adapt quickly, a quiet determination replacing his fear. As they journeyed under the stars, Rin playfully asserted her seniority to Wood, demanding he listen to her as the newbie. Wood meekly agreed. Shrills then suggested they find a river. Wood immediately pointed, sensing water in a specific direction. Rin grudgingly admitted he was pretty good, and Wood offered thanks. Kella asked Shrills why they needed a river. She explained they couldn't keep walking like peasants and needed mounts, which could often be found near water sources. Rin immediately got excited, asking if they could catch a dragon. Shrill shot down her unrealistic dream, stating they'd be lucky to find a unicorn, let alone a dragon. Kella sighed, deciding to trust Wood's senses and head towards the water. They soon arrived at a lush forest clearing where a sparkling river flowed. Near the bank stood two majestic unicorns. Just as Shrills predicted, the creatures sensed their approach and galloped away. Suddenly, a massive clawed footprint slammed into the ground nearby. A colossal, winged silhouette rose against the moon. Rin, forgetting Shrills' words entirely, pointed excitedly, shouting that she wanted a dragon after all. Shrills exasperatedly reminded her there were no dragons, despite the very large, very scaly, very winged creature practically doing the Macarena in front of them. Far away, beneath the same moonlit sky, the desolate landscape near the former Earth Demon village lay still. Alone, injured Earth Demon struggled amidst the rubble as a figure cloaked in white approached. The demon weakly pleaded for help, reaching out a hand. The cloaked figure, the mage Curdly, observed coolly that he was the only survivor. Meanwhile, at a camp littered with the bodies of other slain demons, the Talcan of White gathered around a fire. Deed asked Curdly why the family tracking spell wasn't working properly. Curdly admitted she didn't know, explaining that multiple individuals carrying Helkeldun's trace were detected scattered in different directions. Kalka expressed disbelief that so many of Hell's children could still be alive and pressed Curdly on whether there was any way to pinpoint Kella among them. Curdly confirmed it wasn't possible. Audria complained about wasting time hunting multiple targets, while Deed asked for their next course of action. Killian, their leader, decided they couldn't afford to hesitate. They would hunt down the other demons spread across the continent first. He then specifically tasked Curdly with prioritizing the search for Kella. Curdly noted she could teleport short distances alone, suggesting this method might be faster for tracking Kella individually. Deed enthusiastically agreed, catching himself before saying slaughter and correcting it to cleaning up, telling Curdly to handle her task. Curdly simply acknowledged the order and focused her energy, her tracking eye glowing. In a flash of light, she vanished, prompting Deed to comment on her abrupt departure. Killian smirked slightly, suggesting they proceed with hunting the nearby demons. Curdly reappeared back at the ruined Earth Demon village, sensing the faint energy trace she sought. She approached the lone survivor and asked if Kella Kaldun had passed through. The Earth Demon confirmed bitterly that the wimp Kella had wiped out his entire tribe. Curdly inquired about Kella's current location. The demon frantically claimed ignorance, begging for his life first. But before he could finish, a blast of energy from Curdly silenced him permanently. She noted coldly that he was useless without information and decided she had no choice but to follow the faint energy trace herself, murmuring Kella Kaldun's name as she departed once more. Miles away, Kella's group finally reached the river Wood had sensed, cheering their arrival. Kella thanked Wood, impressed by his elven ability to track by scent over such a distance. Rin immediately tried to assert her seniority, telling Wood not to get arrogant, to which he meekly apologized. Kella mentioned they hadn't eaten properly in days, prompting Rin to eagerly volunteer to fish, boasting about her supposed skill. Before she could act, Fish suddenly leaped from the river, and Wood stood holding a large catch, surprising everyone. He explained he controlled the water's flow using nature's power, earning an impressed comment from Surreals. Rin looked utterly crestfallen. As Rin reluctantly offered to start a fire, Surreals instantly conjured a purple magical flame. This left Rin speechless, sulking behind a tree. Soon, smoke rose as the fish cooked. They gathered around the fire, Surreals complimenting Wood on the delicious meal. Kella noticed Rin wasn't eating and asked if she was okay. She mumbled she was fine. Surreals promptly offered to eat Rin's portion, receiving a dejected nod of permission. Kella mused that fish alone wasn't enough and wondered about finding fruit. Rin immediately jumped at the chance, volunteering to search. Wood started to offer, but Kella quickly assigned the task to Rin, giving her a knowing look. Rin, eager to prove herself, promised the most delicious fruits and dashed off enthusiastically. Surreals chuckled, calling Rin a simpleton. She then wryly asked Kella if he sent Rin off intentionally because she was feeling down. Kella awkwardly denied it, insisting he just wanted fruit. Changing the subject, Kella asked Wood if unicorns might be nearby. Wood confirmed he'd smelled them earlier and detected a similar scent close by. Kella half-joked he hoped it was a dragon like Rin wanted, earning an exasperated sigh from Shrills who repeated there were no dragons there. Just then, Rin's voice echoed through the trees, announcing she'd found fruit. She ran towards a large tree, scrambling up onto something large and brown, determined to find the best fruit and not be outdone by Wood. She spotted a perfect, ripe apple and reached for it. Suddenly, the ground beneath her trembled violently, making her cry out, wondering if it was an earthquake. A moment of dawning realization hit her. A low growl rumbled as a massive yellow eye opened below her. Perched precariously on the head of the enormous, scaly creature she had mistaken for a log, Rin let out a terrified shriek. It was a dragon. Back at the campfire, Shrills inquired about Wood's innate ability to sense the Earth's energy. Wood confirmed he could feel nature's presence up to a point, though explaining it precisely was difficult. Kella internally likened this power to checking the mini-map in a game. Shrills noted such an ability would be invaluable for locating dungeons. Wood modestly added that his range was limited, questioning his own usefulness. Kella asked if training could extend the distance, and Wood recalled hearing of one method, prompting Kella's curiosity. Wood explained that consuming the clairvoyant stone from a dragon over 1,000 years old could amplify his sensing range hundreds of times. Kella was astonished by the potential power boost, calling it amazing. Shrills, however, quickly poured cold water on the idea, stating that finding such an ancient dragon was incredibly difficult, and killing one was virtually impossible. Kella asked if dragons were truly that formidable. Shrills affirmed they were apex predators who inherently disliked demons. She elaborated that only a select few humans possessing exceptional mental strength could ever hope to tame them. Kella found the irony amusing, that supposedly weak humans were the only ones capable of taming mighty dragons. Shrills simply advised against trying to understand the complexities of dragon nature. Still, Kella mused on the clairvoyant stone, wishing they could find a way to acquire one. Shrills reiterated the improbability, telling him to abandon the thought. Kella sighed, conceding her point but still wishing they could obtain the stone for Wood's sake. Their conversation was abruptly shattered by Rin's terrified scream, followed by the sight of her being snatched up by the massive dragon that had appeared earlier, yelling for Kella to save her. The group stared in stunned silence. Shrills couldn't believe a dragon actually appeared. Kella uttered its name in disbelief, and Wood merely commented on its sheer size. Kella snapped at Wood to stop gawking and run, while Shrill simultaneously rounded on Kella, reminding him he'd claimed they wouldn't encounter a dragon and questioning its unbelievable size. Kelly yelled back that he didn't know, having never seen one so large, as the beast let out another deafening roar. Rin's continuous shrieking drew the dragon's attention, forcing them to flee as it gave chase. The roar carried through the forest, catching the attention of Curdly, who was tracking nearby. Recognizing the sound, she vanished in a shimmer of light. Kella, Shrills, and would dove behind some large rocks just as the dragon landed heavily nearby. After a moment, it launched itself back into the air and flew away. Shrills cautiously peeked out, sighing in relief that it was gone. She immediately turned on Rin, demanding to know what disaster she dragged back along with the fruit. Rin tearfully apologized, admitting she hadn't thought a dragon would be so close. Wood, still awed, commented again on its immense size, speculating it must have lived for over a millennium. The implication struck Kella immediately. A dragon that ancient would possess a clairvoyant stone. Just as Kella began to see this unexpected encounter as a potential opportunity, the group, huddled behind the rocks, realized they weren't alone. Kella hesitantly asked who was there. Shrills leaped to her feet, recognizing the unwelcome addition to their hiding spot, Curdly of the Talcan of White. Shock rippled through Kella and Rin. A member of Killian's elite squad was here, meaning they had already been found. The group instinctively prepared for battle. Kella summoning his energy bow, aware of Curdly's infamous reputation as a merciless, cold-blooded mage. Kella felt a surge of frustration. He'd hoped for peace after escaping the castle, but danger seemed relentless, and now he faced a notoriously powerful mage. Curdly, however, simply advised them to calm down, stating there was no need for conflict in this location. Que la pauset, conchuset. Curdly addressed Shrills directly, labeling her Talcan's traitor and reiterating that fighting here was pointless. Shrills clenched her jaw, suppressing her anger. To emphasize her point, Curdly manifested sharp shards of ice, calmly stating she could eliminate them all with a single spell. Kella frantically asked Shrills if this was true. Shrills grimly admitted Curdly wasn't bluffing. She was certain Curdly was stronger than their entire group combined. Rin panicked, asking what they should do. Curdly maintained her calm demeanor, repeating there was no need for violence here. If they followed her without causing trouble, she offered, they wouldn't have to die for now. Kella, still wary, but seeing no alternative, asked where she intended to take them. Curdly's eyes glinted as she revealed their destination, the location of her captain, Killian. Chapter 23, Cornered and Interrupted. Shrills reacted with alarm, realizing White Killian was already on the move. Curdly confirmed her captain sought Kella Khaldun, demanding they follow her immediately. Kella grasped the implication. Following meant walking willingly to his execution. Curdly dismissed his concern with chilling indifference, ice magic forming around her hand. She questioned if following wouldn't at least allow him to survive a little longer. Kella gritted his teeth. He hadn't survived this long, dreaming of living freely like in a game, just to accept such a pathetic end. He reasoned that facing her meant certain death, so he might as well fight back. Rejecting surrender, Kella fired Hell's fire arrow straight at the mage. Curdly didn't even flinch, effortlessly erecting a shimmering hexagonal energy shield that absorbed the blast completely. Shrill shouted for everyone to attack, launching her own potent purple energy blasts against the barrier. Wood reached out, attempting to manipulate the earth beneath Curdly, but the attack splashed harmlessly against the shield. Curdly remained utterly unfazed by their combined assault. Rin, feeling like dead weight, couldn't stand by. Declaring she would protect Sir Kella, she charged forward, hammering the shield with fists empowered by dark energy. Shrills yelled a warning, telling Rin not to use close-range attacks against the mage. Curdly calmly acknowledged Rin's choice. Rin cried out as ice erupted from the shield's point of impact, blasting her backward. She crashed heavily into the undergrowth, injured. Curdly coolly stated that bringing Kella's dead body back would suffice, beginning to gather immense power for a large-scale spell. Raising her hands, she unleashed a swirling vortex of ice shards, a blizzard. Shrills reacted instantly, shouting for everyone to get behind her. She threw up a large, purple sphere of protective magic just as the blizzard descended. Kella rushed to Rin's side, asking if she was all right. Rin tearfully apologized, lamenting that she was never any help. Shrill strained, warning that her shield wouldn't last long against the onslaught. Kella desperately asked Shrills if she had any spell powerful enough to counter the blizzard. Shrills admitted that even if she did, the difference in their magic levels was simply too great. Curdly relentlessly poured more ice into the attack. Shrills cried out as cracks spiderwebbed across her shield. Kella felt a wave of despair. If the shield failed, they would all be killed. There had to be a way. He frantically racked his brain. An idea sparked, the shadowy entity from his consciousness. He screamed, focusing inward, trying to channel his power and force contact. Shrills yelled at him, warning that using his strength inside would weaken the shield faster. Kella ignored her, roaring for the entity to come out. Just as the shield began to buckle, the massive dragon reappeared overhead, circling once. It swooped down, its great eye fixing on Curdly. The mage paused her assault, sensing Hel Calden's energy flaring from Kella as he exerted himself. Now she understood why her tracking had failed earlier. His power wasn't constant. Still, she dismissed it, declaring this was the end. Kella raged inwardly, unable to access his consciousness. He wondered if that power only activated near death. Shrill screamed as the shield finally shattered, the blizzard engulfing them. Kella cried out, bracing for the inevitable. Suddenly, the dragon dropped from the sky like a thunderbolt, landing squarely between the attacking mage and Kella's group. Everyone froze, staring in disbelief. The dragon had just blocked Curdly's fatal attack, like a giant, scaly, unexpected plot twist. Chapter 24. A Dragon's Sacrifice. Curdly paused her spell, perplexed by the dragon's sudden intervention. Before she could fully process it, the massive creature slammed into her shield, sending shockwaves through the air. Kella found himself pressed against the dragon's flank, utterly confused by the turn of events. Their eyes met for an instant, and a flood of unfamiliar images poured into Kella's mind, the dragon's memories. He saw a smiling, white-haired demon woman, instantly recognizing her as his mother. The realization hit him. This ancient dragon knew his mother, sharing bittersweet and tender moments with her long ago. A powerful voice echoed directly in Kella's thoughts, urging him to run away. He recoiled, startled, questioning if he was actually hearing the dragon's voice. The dragon then opened its maw and spat out a small, glowing orb that looked suspiciously like a giant cough drop. Kella caught the object reflexively, demanding to know what it was. The dragon identified it as its clairvoyant stone. Kella, bewildered, asked why the dragon would give him such a precious item. The dragon explained there was no time for lengthy explanations, instructing him to hide his power and flee immediately. Kella processed the warning. Hide his powers and run? From whom, besides the obvious ice mage? The dragon growled again, emphasizing the urgent need to hurry. Turning its attention back to Curdly, the dragon unleashed a torrent of searing fire. Curdly maintained her shield, observing the fiery blast with a mixture of surprise and calculation. The situation was undeniably strange. A dragon actively protecting a demon was highly unusual. Kella knew he couldn't waste the opportunity the dragon was providing. He yelled for Shrills, Rin, and Wood to run while they had the chance. Curdly watched them retreat, momentarily pondering the powerful dragon's motives for interfering now. This unexpected variable gave her much to consider. The dragon roared again, continuing its relentless fiery assault against Curdly's shield. From within her defense, Curdly coolly assessed the attack, questioning if that was the dragon's best effort. She decided it was time to exert herself a little more seriously. A complex magic circle materialized high above, coalescing into a massive chunk of ice. a meteor spell aimed directly at the dragon. The dragon met the descending ice meteor with another powerful blast of fire. Its eye held a fierce determination, perhaps flashing back to a peaceful memory of Kella's mother resting against its side before hardening once more. Curdly's spell proved overwhelming. A massive spike of ice broke through the dragon's defense, impaling the creature and sending it crashing heavily to the ground, mortally wounded. Curdly landed near the fallen beast, finding the entire situation increasingly bizarre. Deciding to probe its memories before it expired, she reached out a hand. But the dragon wasn't finished. Its eye flared with incandescent rage, and Curdly instinctively recoiled. A final, telepathic curse against the cruelty of humans echoed from the dying dragon, warning of a future reckoning, before it erupted in a self-detonating inferno. The explosion scorched the earth, leaving behind only remnants of ice, and Curdly standing alone in the devastation. She realized the dragon had chosen to end its own life, a final act that bought Kella precious time to hide his presence and escape. This development was troublesome, Curdly admitted, examining a glowing blue tracking charm. Still, she remained confident, murmuring that this sacrifice wouldn't change Kella Calden's fate. He was destined, she declared to the empty forest, releasing glowing butterfly-like tracking constructs, to die by the hands of the White Talkins. Having escaped immediate danger, the group caught their breath amongst the rocky cliffs. Rin voiced everyone's confusion about the dragon's erratic behavior, attacking one moment, saving them the next. Shrills corrected her, pointing out the dragon seemed specifically focused on aiding Kella, noting its appearance coincided with Kella using his demonic power, and asked if he knew why. Kella explained a brief connection, revealing he'd glimpsed the dragon's memories and believed it had known his mother in the past. Rin found this perplexing, given the usual animosity between dragons and demons, and mused about their unknown history. Kella admitted he didn't know the details, only sensing a bittersweet feeling from the fragmented memories. Shrills then reminded Kella the dragon had given him something. He produced the glowing red orb, the clairvoyant stone. Both Rin and Shrills reacted with astonishment, recognizing the rare artifact and finding it incredible that the dragon saved them and gifted such a treasure. Shrills thoughtfully suggested that perhaps they were just saved by Kella's mother, the former queen, acting through her old friend. Kella clenched the stone, pondering the deep connection he'd sensed in the dragon's eyes and its relationship with his mother. Regardless, acknowledging their luck, he offered the stone to Wood, stating he should take it. Shrills interjected with urgency, reminding them the Talcan of White were actively hunting them. They needed to prepare. Wood hesitated, questioning if it was truly okay for him to accept such an incredibly rare item. Kella insisted, stating Wood was the only one who could use it, and urged him to consume it quickly. Accepting the gift, Wood placed the stone in his mouth and swallowed. He gasped, startled, then cried out as crimson energy flared from his eyes, overwhelming his senses. Wood was plunged into the dragon's millennia-long memories. He witnessed its birth as a captive, a mere lab rat for cruel human experiments. Robed figures inflicted endless pain, disregarding its suffering entirely. Day after day, generation after generation, they tore its body apart for their research, healing it just before death only to begin the cycle anew. After centuries of unimaginable torture, its spirit broke. It gave up hope. Its tormentors even noted its silence, mockingly calling it an achievement. Resigned to death, its prison suddenly shook violently. Turk Khaldun, a fearsome demon king, was invading the human stronghold. Amidst the chaos, the laboratory collapsed, and the dragon found itself unexpectedly freed. It escaped the hellish facility, finally experiencing the exhilaration of soaring through the open sky. Seeking its own kind, it recounted the horrors inflicted by humans, urging fellow dragons to ally with the demons against their common tormentors. But its pleas fell on deaf ears. The other dragons refused to believe its tale. They had already established strong ties with humans aiding them in conflicts against demons. The dragon realized, horrified, that few understood this alliance was built upon the suffering of dragons sacrificed in experiments just like itself. Experiments designed to help humans understand and harness draconic power and magic. This harsh truth was rejected, overshadowed by the existing hostility towards demons. The other dragons viewed it with suspicion, believing it sought only to harm humans. Ostracized and alone, it belonged nowhere, not with humans, not demons, not even its own kind. It despaired, questioning the very purpose of its miserable existence. It retreated into isolation, dwelling in endless darkness and solitude, passively awaiting its end. It was a worse fate than listening to K-pop on repeat forever. This bleak existence continued until one day, a small, crying demon girl stumbled upon its refuge. The girl, Kella's mother caressed as a child, looked up with tear-filled eyes and called out, "Mommy." The dragon was taken aback. The little girl ran forward, clinging to its snout and sobbing inconsolably. Gently, the dragon told her it wasn't her mother. And in that moment of unexpected connection, the dragon realized it might have finally found its reason for being. Through the clairvoyant stone, Wood was immersed in the ancient dragon's memories, witnessing the moment it first met the young demon child, Karist. The dragon perceived Karist's own bleak past through a transfer of memories. While humans had experimented on the dragon, it learned that demons had experimented on Karist. A hostile, independent demon faction known as Tarsica was responsible. Their experiments aimed to analyze dragon magic and develop methods to subjugate dragons, using even dragon eggs in their research. From the moment Karist hatched, Tarsica seized her for their cruel tests. Karist possessed the highest magic potential among all subjects, capable of complex dragon magic, including transformation from birth. This innate ability was the primary reason Tarsica subjected her to such relentless experimentation. Living in constant pain and despair, Karist miraculously developed teleportation magic on her own. She managed to escape the facility, wandering alone and far until she finally encountered the solitary dragon. The dragon mused that perhaps their shared, painful fates drew them together, or maybe it was just a twist of irony, like a vegan opening a butcher shop. Regardless, their similar histories made it impossible for them to remain strangers. Confused, Karist had asked if the dragon was her master. The dragon, confirming it wasn't her parent, instructed her to call it master from then on. Karist, with childlike innocence, excitedly agreed, exclaiming master. She even equated master to mother, much to the dragon's firm correction that it was just master. Following this, the dragon taught Karist many things. How the world worked, the proper way for a dragon to live, and all the dragon magic it had learned throughout its long life. The time spent with Karist flew by, a stark contrast to the agonizing crawl of its past suffering. One day, Karist suddenly thanked the dragon, leaving it momentarily puzzled. She simply wanted to express her gratitude, a sentiment the dragon didn't immediately understand. Watching Karist grow, and all the moments they shared, brought the dragon a happiness beyond words. The immense pain it had endured from being born a dragon seemed insignificant compared to the beautiful life they lived together. However, an unexpected change occurred. Karist asked her master what was wrong. The dragon, its mind clouded, didn't recognize her, demanding to know who she was. It saw her transformed state and aggressively questioned if she was human or demon, ordering her to identify herself. Karist, distressed, asked why her master was testing her. The dragon, lost in confusion, threatened to kill her regardless of her nature, unleashing an attack. Karist cried out in terror, "Master!" The dragon had only ever wanted to live happily with Karist, but its body, its lifespan drastically shortened by the endless experiments, was beginning to break down as it reached its limits. Karist pleaded with it, asking why it was doing this and if it truly didn't remember her. For a fleeting moment, recognition flickered and the dragon stammered, K. Karist. Relieved, Karist asked if her master remembered her, and if it was okay now. The dragon apologized, explaining it hadn't meant to attack. It realized then that before the day came when it couldn't recognize her at all, it needed to leave her side. As it flew away, Karist cried out, asking where her master was going and begging it to stop playing and come out. Her anguished cries of "Master" echoed as the dragon departed. For Karist, its precious disciple, it flew as far as possible. It then began to prepare for its life's end, dwelling in nostalgic memories of Karist, cycling through moments of remembering and forgetting her. It sensed then why its memories were fading. Its life would be over soon. One day, from a great distance, it felt a bittersweet energy. Instinctively, it began to wander towards that familiar sensation. On what it knew was the last day of its life. It was finally able to meet that energy, Kella screaming as he unleashed his power. The dragon paused, its wings beating the air, a spark of recognition igniting within it. This energy, the only thing remaining in its fading memories of her, was Karist's energy, its precious disciple. No, it was Kella, who was like Karist's child, her daughter. It was her energy. The dragon roared Karist's name. It saw Kella and his companions fleeing. In that place, it found not Karist, but a different child, yet it knew, seeing Kella surrounded by an aura of power. The dragon could tell that this child was Karist's. In a brief glimpse into Kella's memories, the dragon saw that its lovely daughter, Karist, had become a mother, holding her own child dearly. Tears welled in the dragon's ancient eyes. Karist, it vowed to protect her precious child, Kella, unleashing a torrent of fire. The dragon thanked Karist for not letting its last days fade without meaning. At the end of its long, long life, it was nice to see her child this once. It silently expressed its love for its daughter, Karist. The overwhelming flood of memories ceased and would collapse, tears streaming down his face. Rin rushed to his side, asking if the newbie was okay. Would explain that some very long memories had been transferred. But, like a dream, the more he tried to recall the specifics, the more they dissipated until he couldn't remember any of it clearly. Yet, regarding the dragon, he knew with certainty that it had died a happy death. Kella, hearing this, looked thoughtful. He concluded that the dragon must have met its end at the hands of that mage, picturing the icy aftermath of Curdly's magic. Shrills was incredulous that Wood couldn't recall anything specific from the dragon's memories, especially after he'd been crying while saying they were transferred. Wood, looking apologetic, theorized the ability might not manifest all at once, or perhaps it would develop slowly over time. He even worried that, in a worst-case scenario like a politician keeping a promise, his ability might be lacking and not manifest at all, earning a frustrated sigh from Rin, who declared he still had a long way to go. Kella decided they had no choice but to wait for Wood's skill to awaken. Rin asked what their next move was, concerned about when the white talcon might find them again. Kella, resolute, stated they needed to find a defensible location and asked Shrills for the world map. Shrills displayed a map showing the human kingdom of Talua in blue and the former demon kingdom in red. She pointed out their current position on the boundary between the two territories. Kella, after moments thought, declared that heading south seemed like a good plan. Rin and Shrills were surprised, questioning why they wouldn't go deeper into demon territory. Kella explained his father must have had a reason for sending him to the human territory of Arsal, believing part of it was to meet Shrills. He surmised his father likely predicted that once the demon kingdom fell, humans would launch a full-scale invasion of demon lands. Shrills agreed, confirming that as soon as Helkeldun passed, not just the White Talcan, but all of humanity's armies seized the opportunity to exterminate the demon folk. Rin then suggested that Kella needed to rally the demons behind him. Kella, however, deemed it impossible at that moment, reminding them he was branded a coward who ran away, as evidenced by the Earth Demon's reaction. He believed other demon folk likely felt the same and admitted he lacked the power to rally anyone yet. When Rin started to suggest Shrills could help, Shrills interjected, stating that besides their father, no one could prove her royal lineage. There was nothing she could do about it. She added that the things she did while in Talcan would make it hard to gain forgiveness. Kella then outlined their immediate plan. First, create a dungeon as a home base, and second, he needed to achieve things. To make demons follow him willingly, he had to prove his strength. Rin and Shrills enthusiastically agreed, exclaiming achievements, and as expected, they declared that by stacking achievements, demons would naturally gather around him, proving his worthiness as the next Demon King. Kella affirmed they needed to use this time to establish their position and create a strategy, deciding to create a home-based dungeon in the south. Rin and Shrills cheered, ready to go. Kella felt a sense of relief that his companions were following his makeshift plan so readily. He had finally gathered the comrades he needed, but they were being pursued by absurdly powerful monsters. It was too dangerous to face the White Talcan now. He needed more information, reflecting on his experiences and noticing many similarities to a game, from the descriptions of magic to the names of monsters. It all felt familiar. If there truly was a link between this world and his previous life, he resolved to use his status as the Demon King's son to get what he needed and leverage his past life's knowledge to create a survival strategy. He believed there had to be a path to victory and was determined not to die before finding it. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a village burned. A demon, clutching a child, pleaded for mercy, declaring they would stand with the humans. A figure wreathed in blue flames, mockingly asked if they said something, claiming he couldn't hear them. The demon cursed them as cruel bastards for attacking after they had clearly surrendered. He simply stated that demons should just be quiet and die, swiftly cutting the demon down. A soldier reported to Tarm, who was addressed as captain, that they were done. Tarm looked momentarily surprised. Killian, leader of the White Talcan, received a report from Curdley that a dragon had helped Kella, though the reason remained unknown. Killian noted Kella was encountered at the boundary territory, not far from the Earth Demon lands. Curdley mentioned she was currently using butterflies to search for him. Killian mused Kella wouldn't want to enter the demon territory, now a sea of flames, and decided they should regroup with Curdley. Audria, a muscular female warrior, questioned leaving the rest of the demons, urging they take the chance to eliminate them all. Killian calmly told Audria to calm down, stating it wouldn't be too late to deal with them after Kella was killed. He grimly affirmed his need to obliterate the bloodline that killed his brother, even if it was just an hour sooner. Back with Kella's group, Kella shivered, remarking on the sudden cold. Rin explained it was because they had run south for a week without rest. Kella was relieved they hadn't been followed by the Talcan, hoping to avoid them at least until his preparations were complete. Suddenly, their unicorn mounts halted. Rin asked why the unicorns had stopped so abruptly. Wood, his connection to nature heightened, informed them the unicorns were strongly refusing to go any further. Wood confirmed the unicorns were staunchly refusing to proceed further. He surmised they sensed an inhospitable environment ahead, but Kella assured him it was fine, as they had reached their destination. Kella then decided it was time to send the unicorns back. Wood bid his mount a safe return with a grateful touch. The group proceeded on foot as the unicorns galloped away into the desolate, snowy landscape. Rin shivered, remarking that both humans and demons would struggle in such harsh weather, to which Kella replied that was precisely why it was perfect. He declared they should find a suitable location for their base. As the unicorns journeyed back under the full moon, one of Curdley's glowing butterflies appeared, observing them. From a distant cliff, Curdley noted with suspicion that unicorns, creatures known to fear the cold, were moving north from the southern region, and there were 4 of them. Meanwhile, Kella's group reached ashore, eyeing a nearby island. Wood suggested a cave on the island could offer them the safest position. Kella asked if we could sense any occupants or monsters, but Wood apologized, explaining his mind's I only responded to nature, not life forms. Shrills, observing some weathered boats nearby, deduced it had been some time since anyone had visited the island. Kella inquired if the boats were usable, and Shrills confirmed they looked fine. They soon set off in one of the boats, the island roughly 200 meters from the coast. The water, while not overly far to cross, was sufficiently deep with strong waves. Kella noted this would make it easy to detect any invaders. Upon reaching the cave entrance, which was wider than he'd anticipated, Kella asked Shrills if she could cast illusion magic to conceal it. Shrills, with a confident smirk, replied that it was easy, and a shimmering grid of light concealed the opening. Inside, Kella observed that the cave looked like it had been used a long time ago and proposed they explore. Rin quickly pointed out that the path ahead split into two. Kella then asked Wood for a more detailed layout of the cave. Wood described two narrow paths on each side that opened into a room, then narrowed again before merging into a larger chamber at the end. He added there was an even deeper room with a single entrance, connected to a small exit. Kella decided they should split into two groups to check both paths, and then meet in the middle. Shrills playfully suggested she and Kella take one path, causing Rin to look aghast. Rin vehemently protested, insisting she would go with Kella, much to his surprise. Flustered, Rin argued that since they didn't know what dangers lay in the tunnels, the two strongest members should separate to cover more ground efficiently. Shrills conceded the point and decided she would go with Wood. Kella instructed Shrills to investigate anything unusual and meet him in the center. Shrills acknowledged the plan. As Shrills and Wood ventured down their path, Wood noticed glowing stones providing illumination. Shrills identified them as light stones, created by a skilled mage combining ice and light magic. Noting their continued glow indicated recent creation. Shrills then bluntly informed Wood that she still didn't trust him. Wood, taken aback, asked what she meant. Shrills clarified that she was only traveling with him because Kella had chosen him, but she wasn't the type to easily accept new comrades. A tense silence passed between them. Wood responded that she needn't worry about calling him a comrade. She could simply think of him as a slave. Shrills glanced at him, then turned away, stating coolly that she didn't like him. Wood looked down, a hint of sadness in his eyes. In the other tunnel, Kella commented on the light stones, remarking it would be nice if they could make them themselves. Rin enthusiastically volunteered to research how to create them. She then anxiously warned Kella about a loose stone ahead, urging him to be careful not to trip. Kella merely acknowledged her concern. He inwardly wondered why Rin was so overly motivated, especially since her previous attempts at being useful often ended up like a cat trying to use a revolving door. Suddenly, a blue, gelatinous creature appeared. Kella stared in surprise, exclaiming that it was a slime. He admitted with boyish excitement that he'd only ever seen them in video games and had always wanted to touch one in his life. Before he could, Rin, incandescent with protective fury, unleashed her power, demanding how the slime dared to appear. She declared that a mere slime would not block Kella's path and vowed to evaporate it, her hands crackling with dark energy. With a swift motion, she obliterated the creature, then looked expectantly at Kella, who wondered if she was seeking a compliment. He offered deadpan, "Good job, Rin." Beaming, Rin thanked him, assuring him not to worry about anything. She proclaimed she would take care of whatever emerged, prompting Kella to tell her to calm down a bit. Just then, the ground began to tremble violently. Kella and Rin looked around in alarm as a massive stone golem emerged from the cavern wall, its single eye glowing red. Kella, shocked by its immense size, quickly pulled Rin behind him. But Rin, her resolve unbroken, insisted she would handle anything that got in their way, her power flaring once more. While Kella and Rin faced their golem, Shrills, in the other tunnel, suddenly exclaimed with surprise. She had found an old but expensive-looking crystal necklace and excitedly showed it to Wood, wondering if they'd stumbled upon a treasure-filled dungeon. She draped it around her neck, asking Wood if it looked good on her. Wood offered a non-committal "ah, sure." Shrills looked distinctly unimpressed with his lack of enthusiasm. She imagined how Rin would have reacted, with gushing compliments and an eagerness to find more treasure. Shrills found Wood's stoicism quite unlikable, while Wood simply remained silent. Back in Kella's passage, the massive golem slammed its fist down, forcing Rin to dodge. Rin, determined, launched herself at the golem, believing if she could just destroy it, she would prove her worth. The golem, however, swatted her aside with a powerful blow, sending her crashing into the wall. She coughed up blood, clearly injured. Kella observed that it seemed impossible to defeat the golem without weapons, as their attacks weren't working at all. Rin, however, refused to give up, shouting that she could do it. She struck the golem again with her magic, but was once more brutally knocked back. Kella called out to Rin, asking why she was pushing herself so hard. Rin struggled to her feet, her power flickering. She gasped that at this rate, she wouldn't be able to serve as his attendant. Kella looked at her, puzzled by her desperation. Rin's mind flashed back to when she first entered the Demon King's castle. A young, tearful Kella had asked his father, Helkildon, if he could be friends with an attendant, specifically stating he wanted to be friends with Rin. Helkildon had coldly dismissed the notion, asking if Kella was kidding and stating an attendant was just an attendant, ordering him to proceed with the contract immediately. As a young Kella sniffled, trying to hold back tears, he apologized to Rin before formally declaring, in the name of Kella Kaldon, that he took Rin as his attendant. A young Rin had simply thanked him. She recalled him saying he wanted to treat her not just as an attendant, but as a friend, a sentiment that alone had made her incredibly happy. It felt like she was finally being acknowledged as a person. That day, watching Kella cry himself to sleep, Rin swore an oath to support him in becoming the greatest of all demons, vowing to work really, really hard. But as time went on within the castle walls, Kella turned out to be a crybaby and a coward, constantly on the brink of death due to his siblings' torment. He would often wail in fear, telling Rin he almost died again and was scared. Rin would remind him that if he died, she would die too, due to their contract. Even when she acted cold and strict to try and toughen him up, he never changed. Because of Kella's weakness, Rin was ignored and discriminated against by the other attendants. They would taunt her, asking if they should pluck out her pretty eyes. She was forced to eat Tarm's leftover scraps, told it was enough since she'd die with Kella anyway. She endured food that burned her insides and was even splashed with molten lava. She had to sleep alone in the stables, and even then, other attendants would come to torment her, meaning she was never safe. They would accuse her of seducing Lord Tarm and threaten to make her prettier with a dagger. Rin could only plead for them to stop. It was around then Rin remembered that she started to hate Kella. Because of the contract, if he died, she would die too. She had thought perhaps it would be better if they just died together. That was why she tried to kill him with a dagger. But she was shocked by his incredible recovery power. She despaired, wondering why she couldn't even die when she wanted to, questioning what she was supposed to do. Kella had apologized to her then, and so Rin had given up on everything, living like a corpse. But suddenly, Rin grit out, her voice filled with emotion, changed overnight. She looked at Kella, declaring it was as if he became a completely different person. The current Kella, she felt, seemed like the true heir to the great Demon King. Her attack on the golem intensified. She cried out that she had just been a burden to him. Purple energy flared around her. If she was just going to keep getting in his way, then she shouldn't stay by his side. Rin unleashed a massive burst of power at the golem's head, causing a large explosion. She landed, battered and bruised, before Kella. She began, tears welling in her eyes. Never want to be abandoned by you. Kella simply said her name, Rin. Before the golem could strike the vulnerable Rin, she looked up in alarm. Kella's hand ignited with blue flame. He launched a powerful fire attack that obliterated the golem in a blinding explosion. Kella gently held Rin, asking if she was an idiot. He reminded her that she risked her life to protect him every time he was in danger. Why, he asked, would he ever abandon an attendant like her? Rin looked up at him, whispering, Lord Kella. Kella grinned, telling her that even if she tried to run away again someday, he wouldn't let her go, so she shouldn't regret this choice. Rin sniffled, then broke down, wailing and hugging Kella tightly. Kella held her, reflecting that he now possessed the memories Rin had shared with him. Her feelings were genuine. For the future's sake, he resolved he had to make Rin the strongest attendant.